Mhm. Um, Here we have a quorum, so I'll open the meeting. A couple more people, I believe, are coming, but aren't here yet. But we'll call the meeting to order, and we will record attendance. When someone is online, we all have to state our name for attendance around the table. So we'll start with Jean online.
Jean Belgrowski Hinshaw.
Grippy, Tom Claus,
Seth Strange.
Shirley Green,
Jay Wellens, Peter Hurst.
and the first thing I want to do is welcome our new members. I think Seth hasn't been appointed just yet, but he actually sent his application in on April 7th.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, and it was lost. So he didn't know about it till I called to check to see why he hadn't applied. But he'd been hoping to hear from somebody who had already been appointed. So
Okay.
we're very sorry
Okay.
that happened.
Hey, sorry, my dog decided to run away.
We just opened the meeting, Kate. We went around and said our
Lucky
name.
for me, apparently I can't keep anything out of it.
Because we have someone on Teams. We all got to do
Who's on Teams?
a meeting.
Jean.
And welcome to you, Peter.
thank you.
Glad you applied.
Yeah.
And glad to have you with us. And Susan Brown is our other person applied. And I don't know if she'll be other ones not. I haven't heard from her.
Could you tell Seth that he's on the agenda for Monday? It's not published yet.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry, Seth.
No, no.
And said that,
Happens.
we
I know.
realized too that he actually was the first one who applied.
I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry.
It's not a race.
Pardon
I
me.
said it's not a race.
Okay.
So we've done the attendance and welcomed new members.
Did you do a roll call?
Yes, we did.
Roll call,
We,
Kate
we
Stewart.
can add you too.
No, I have to say my name out loud
Yes.
because we have somebody online.
Okay,
It's just why it's preferable to be in person.
Okay, and the next thing on the agenda is something that we need to do each year, just for the record, is both the chair and vice chair. And because this isn't on here, because I don't want to be chair any longer,
you don't,
but pardon me,
oh, that's not on there because you don't want to.
right?
Oh,
It
okay,
isn't. It's
okay.
just because it's the way that they like us to just check in
Sure.
and let Elisa know if there's any changes. Because I don't know if anyone else wants to be a chair. If you do, you need to speak up, but
No,
as I said, I didn't put it on there because I didn't want to be. I put it on there because it's a
Okay.
necessary thing to do each year. Because some committees have same chairs for years.
Mhm.
But, so we needed to,
I'm very happy with you staying on this chair and I'd like to stay as vice chair. And I do want to say that although last year somebody asked me if I wanted to be chair before you volunteered. And I said, no way, because I had only been on the commission for 6 months. I feel a lot more comfortable now. And, you know, if you wanted to step down, I was willing to step up and take it.
well, still got a lot of things on my agenda.
Yeah, and I want to help you get those things
Yeah.
done.
Unless somebody objects,
Yeah, you just need a motion and a second.
yes. And do one at a time.
I'll make a motion that you stay on as chair.
Okay.
Second.
And do we hear, we need to, is all in favor? Any,
Has to be a roll call.
Yeah. go
Right.
ahead and hold it.
Jean?
Yep.
We'll start with you.
Jean Belgrowski Hinshaw, aye.
Ed Rippey, aye. Tom Claus, aye.
No.
Actually, you can't vote.
Yeah.
And I guess I can.
You can vote for yourself.
Yeah.
You're on time.
It's okay.
Peter, you had your hand up. Was that for an eye or do you have
I
something? to say?
misunderstood one of your earlier statements, but now I understand it. Peter Hurst, aye.
Yep. Did you have a question on?
No.
I lost me.
Um,
Kate Plumley Stewart, I.
do I hear a nomination? Any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Ed. You're saying the vice chair, to continue as vice chair?
I'll second it.
So we'll vote. Jean,
Jean Belgrowski Hinshaw, I.
Aye.
Tom Claus, aye.
It's awkward.
Shirley Green, aye.
Jay Wellens, aye. Peter Hurst, aye.
I'll let Elise.
Wait, I think, did I? Sorry, I'm over here. Did I vote?
You haven't voted yet.
Kate Plumley Stewart, I.
Sorry, if we keep.
No, that's okay. I moved, so my back is into the audience, but also I'm trying to log into my town account, which I gotta sign a new password.
Was
Shh, I can do it.
The next thing on our agenda is guiding principles. And Jean has put a lot of time and effort in putting these together and would like to speak to them.
Sure, thank you. And this is something that we developed based on the conversations that we've had the last few meetings around the evaluation of the Class 6 roads. And so I just tried to distill from our notes and from comments made by public or the committee some of the things that seem to be kind of active at once. Guiding principles are helpful when we have multiple viewpoints on an issue, and it helps us kind of agree on higher level ideas, so that if we get to, a decision where we might be leaning one way or another, to come back to a common feeling or a common belief or a common principle that we all agree on, even though we might interpret it in different ways. So there's just a goal, which is what the Conservation Commission is working on, which is to work with a variety of stakeholders and people who wish to really understand, and on behalf of the town, to evaluate, to take an inventory of the Class 6 roads, and then to really try and take advantage of some of the volunteer resources who have come forward to help in terms of maintenance and access and the like. So, we have a multiplicity of things that are kind of, working here. But currently what we're doing, and I provided some background, just a little bit of background saying, we've been asked to do this work. The current situation is that we are conducting an inventory. We did have our walk around on Sunday, this past Sunday, which was really productive and enjoyable. And so we looked at, I think, 17 of the Class 6 roads, as I counted them. Many of us took notes. We took some pictures. We kind of got a bird's eye view of the condition of each, and then got some really nice background from a very knowledgeable community member who helped us understand the history and the use and kind of how far each Class 6 road went, what it might connect with or not. We saw some vernal pools. We saw a lot. So that's kind of where we are. So we'll be gathering up those notes and kind of consolidating the information and the pictures. So we teamed up on that. So that's some work that's currently in progress. There's other things that we can add to this. A number of us have watched the University of New Hampshire Extension webinars recently taking place over the last several months. And many of them really talked about how do you maintain, wildlife and nature and the environment while you're doing things like creating trails and maintaining your Class 6 roads and considerations around that. So we'll pick over those things too and bring up, some important guiding ideas. So let's see, I've described what guiding principles really are. And so this is strictly draft, trying to reflect the ideas that have come up throughout the course of these meetings and discussions. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just our job is in everything we do to protect and conserve nature and wildlife. Of course, we're working on behalf of the town, and we always work within laws and regulations and make sure that we, honor the rights of Enfield citizens, many of whom kind of think about this in various ways. Of course, we respect each other, we respect nature, and the individual voices as well as more powerful voices. And it's very important. We've had some really good, I think, input from community on this topic. We want to think about kind of the short view, which is, what condition are the roads in now? Which roads lend themselves to, enjoyment and access by people for various purposes in terms of hiking, snowshoeing, snowmobiles, etc. And also, we want to think about the long view, that whatever we decide to do with each road needs to consider where are we going with this? How do we do this in a way where we're not destroying anything, in the category of nature and wildlife, or at least that we're taking all of that into consideration and making conscious decisions about those kinds of things. Health came up a lot in the conversations and in the input from community and committee members. And so I think we should, really think about whatever actions we all recommend or decide to take, that we're really thinking about not just, recreation, but the health benefits that it seems like so many people gain from access to these roads. We heard from some vets who said that's their way to get to the deep woods, where they find peace and quiet and some time to kind of just chill out and be peaceful. A woman from the community talked about it's how much enjoyment she gets from the quiet when she's out there. We value safety, peace, tranquility, and joy. So while we like to go out and have fun, and some of that fun can be noisy, we also value realizing that, these roads are in neighborhoods and things like that. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of thinking about the fact that we like to go out and have fun, but we also want to be mindful of the fact that, the world is increasingly kind of congested and polluted. And these roads offer us a wonderful resource for having a very special place in Enfield and how we think about and use and enjoy our roads. Humility, we approach all of these questions and recommendations with humility and how we are learning. I found it just wonderful being out there on the roads on Sunday, thinking about, I can't remember which road it was, Gage or something like that, where the Class 4 road or the Class 6 road was running by, where, we were talking about, the highway 4 or 4A, and you'd think about what it was like here before all of this happened. And our guide was telling us this road leads into a network that goes into of roads that connects to a network of roads that are in Lebanon, that connects to a network of roads in Hanover. And so you could picture almost what it would be like for people to be using those instead of, I-89 and Route 4 and things like that. So and we want to be careful and proactive in how we plan. We want to be good stewards of the roads, our resources, and the land and all. We want to honor adaptive tradition. I know there are things that we have done or have been norms in the past. And while we honor those things as part of our history, sometimes those things have to adapt into today's world with an eye towards the future. So I think it's an opportunity to honor tradition, but let it evolve. And then feasibility. Everything that we recommend needs to be feasible. I don't think one size fits all we saw in these roads on Sunday. And each is very different in how much it might lend itself to being part of this. And we have certain resources that that are at hand, but we don't have limitless resources. So we would want to make sure that, whatever we decide to take on to steward and maintain on a regular basis, that we've got the resources to do it and the capacity. So next steps is for us to document this inventory that we kind of launched off recently. And on Sunday, we did our hiking around and saw 17 of the roads, and to describe from our hiking and traveling around the town what we saw. And then some of the roads, we noticed a few little documentation things that need maybe errors, you'd call them, or just things that need to be corrected on some of the maps that exist and all. So we want to make sure we take this opportunity to update those in the documentation, so that when people are looking for something, they are able to find what they're actually looking for. And then develop some criteria for thinking about which roads really lend themselves. And I think it was pretty obvious as we looked at them all, and the people who really have walked and hiked these roads more than others were very familiar with the terrain. And we want to, of course, consider a range of uses, how easy or difficult might it be to maintain these roads. And then just, have our normal process of reporting on and discussing these findings with the group and with others as appropriate and according to the process here. So those are the guiding principles that I drafted, and we are free to edit away.
I think I'm gonna have to be the wet blanket. I know how long it takes to develop a document like this. And I think it's really important to have this conversation, but we've had many, many conversations about Class 6 roads. We already had a motion that passed. I didn't realize that this was gonna go into making more recommendations on work. So I guess one of the things that's a pickier point, but very important is, does everybody have a copy of the conservation state law book? Because we should be getting, I don't know.
Yes.
Yep.
I ordered,
You ordered
more,
some more.
but,
So a lot of the principles and things that we have to by law operate by are in that book. So writing another layer for the town may or may not make sense. But what I am going to tell you is that Conservation Commission has no legal authority to make any recommendations or do any work on Class 6 roads. So while we've entertained a long conversation on it, you actually have to go to the select board. You can't put up a sign, you can't do anything. So you could come up with a proposal and justify it. But I think you don't want to do all of that pre-work before you go to the select board. And Class 6 roads are a really weird one in this sense, because the state law says the town can't spend any money on them. And at the same time, you can't spend any money, you can't do any work, right? So we are part of the town. As an appointed official, as a select board member, you are part of the town. So you are also forbidden, right, from doing some of those activities. So that is very complicated. It's part of state law. If this group in their official town capacity goes out and does any work, and it's recorded, it becomes a Class 5 road, then we are legally obligated as a town to maintain it and to plow it. So I want just, this is one of those really let's think about what, and that's why it has to go back to the select board, because that's a major financial commitment to do that kind of work. We've already kind of said that we weren't going to be trying to make that proposal and to ask to go to town meeting. So I think, check out the handbook, and then, so since this is outside of our scope and we don't have any authority, I think we really need to be very, very careful. Same thing on the signs. My understanding on your walk was that you guys were only looking at location and signs. So it sounds like you had some pretty extensive conversations that weren't publicly noticed and aren't done.
no, we didn't have any.
Oh, it sounded like Jean had some pretty extensive comments just now, so I don't know where those are from,
Yeah,
because I was not there.
We didn't discuss, any of the guiding principles the only thing we looked at was signs.
Oh, okay, because I heard vernal pools and a bunch of other stuff.
Well, it was observations. Yeah, we talked-
Observations.
saw-
So,
we
yeah, and I
observed.
think that needs to be documented, because we need to remember this is still a public committee that is,
We
Needs to
observed
do
things, and
business
it was,
and-
the meeting was posted.
yeah, but I think, the spirit of the law is to not have the
Now,
discussion
what
outside
about
of
the
public.
groups that came in to volunteer to work on these roads?
Yep, so.
That has to go before the select board before they.
So the way that works is if they want to do substantial work or modifications, they're gonna need to have a letter of agreement with the town. If they're gonna just pick up limbs and take care of them, It's very different. So when remember the snowmobile club was discussed in Mud Pond Road? So the snowmobile club had permission from, and it's an operations thing, right? Even though they can't do anything, the permission to go in and make a repair or do what they did on Mud Pond came from DPW. There's gonna be an upcoming, I think some questions were asked, and so there's gonna be something on the select board meeting for Monday, in regards to something related. I have not seen the package.
Related
To permission to upgrade a road, there is a
Oh.
property owner who has purchased off of Hackett. Did you guys visit Hackett?
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
Okay, so Hackett is really torn up right now. So previously, we were told by a member of the four-wheel drive and off-road club who lives in Enfield, who lives on Hackett, that the state had put in a bunch of gravel so they could get in there with the excavator. They promptly tore that all up.
Yeah.
It sounds like you probably saw it. And so this property owner, separate property owner, is making a request to fix it because it's a more substantial repair. That's gonna be, is an information item in front. So I think that will generate some discussion. But those kind of things, but fixing a water bar, like cleaning out the leaves, cleaning out a culvert, cutting trees back that have fallen, and general, like, fill in the pothole kind of repairs, like those are not something that has to go, but other ones would need to run by, like, so that's why Jim has it as an informational item in our packet. So the four-wheel drive and off-road clubs were not going to go in during the mud season, would be a really bad idea. So they are gonna be doing an evaluation separately, which is something they can do because they are not a town committee, and they can certainly make a proposal, and they are allowed to spend money where we are not allowed to spend a single penny on it. So, and I think that's really.
Well, we can purchase the signs if we decide
If,
to, or
yeah,
we will.
if they're
with the
approved by
select
the
boards-
select, yeah.
With the select boards.
Yeah, so that is the
Yeah.
kind of the class 6 roads are just a really kind of weird animal because the state legislature made it so that you could maintain them and keep them and not give them back to the property owner. But on the flip side, they really made it so the town, because the second you touch it, it becomes a class 5.
Right.
And it's,
Other than if they clear trees and stuff like that.
no, the town can't clear trees.
No, I mean the volunteers.
Oh, the volunteers can clear. trees, Yeah,
Volunteers,
yeah. No,
'Cause,
so-
Great, okay, so, go ahead.
I'd like to make some comments about all of this. First of all,
hope everyone does.
okay, first of all, I want to say, Kurt, thank you. Thank you so much for spending the time and taking a group of us out and letting us learn about these things and do what we did. It was really a worthwhile and enjoyable thing. And Jean, I think what you drew up here is awesome. I think it's really a job well done, although we have some restraints.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But something that I was thinking about that I would like to do, and Kate, correct me if we can't,
Mhm.
but I was thinking, because I took 24 pictures.
Mhm.
We've got them on a flash drive there, and I think that's next on the agenda. I would like to run through those pictures with the group so they can see what we all saw. But what I would like to do as something that the Conservation Commission has prepared is not as wonderful and as huge and as encompassing as this, but I would like to have some kind of pamphlet which displays can we do that? Displays what the class 6 roads are and have it.
You can probably load information to the website. There's already some there, but you can't use town money to print a folder. That's the whole
Yeah.
point is you're barred by state law from using
Okay.
taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
Can I make a
Yeah.
comment on that?
You can, but
You
It's not gonna
can't
change.
use town funds on the physical road itself.
you can't use it on anything. You can't use it for a lawyer. You can't use it for printing. I've already asked the question.
I think if it's anything else.
No, I'm not misreading an RSA, Kurt, because I asked the question. I'm not a lawyer and I would never interpret RSAs as a legal document because that's illegal practice of law.
If that was something that we wanted to do,
We can,
not get reimbursed for it and have it as part of the Conservation Commission's
We could have Shirley talk to Ed about it.
cool things to have.
yeah, because did you have a comment on
Yeah.
doing something like that, Jean?
Well, yeah, I think this fits, this is great input. And I think that the principles that exist, absolutely, I mean, that's what we want to do this according to the law. And just to clarify, my terminology of wanting to do it on behalf of the town, to me, that was a way of saying to the select board to provide some data to the select board. So I think we can absolutely tweak the language, and I realize that the word recommendation is kind of a reserved term, so we can take that out. But we want to, we'll tweak it or change it to make sure that it's appropriate to follow those kinds of those rules and the like. And then we'll gather the data up that we have and use it appropriately or pass
And
it
the
on.
photos along with the data.
I think you also are assuming there is no data and no information. And I think we need to be careful about making those because just because people are learning about this now who happen to be on this committee doesn't mean that stuff doesn't already exist. So there's some like, hey, it's new to you, right? But like, let's not reinvent the wheel. So we having that you can have that conversation with Ed and Shirley have it with but like in terms of updating the town and the state, there's no need to do that because that's something that's
Well, I
already
get the
reported.
feeling that, what Ed and Gino taught us to have something nice prepared that gives the community more awareness of what there is out there to enjoy.
Okay, no, and I'm a very literal black and white reader, so I read it exactly as assure updated documentation with the town, county, and state. And that's very different than making like a flyer type item. I think the other thing that's really important is, like I said, we need to conduct our business in public. This document came in saying Conservation Commission eyes only. That's illegal, right? And so we need to be very careful. I'm very uncomfortable when I got that.
Yeah, I don't think probably Jean was
Yeah.
aware.
But that's so if, and there's also upcoming training on right to know law. So if you aren't familiar with it and you don't know how to use it in New Hampshire, we need to make sure that you guys get some of that training.
Yeah,
Because
and
it's super
and that
fun.
was-
I think that's
yeah.
important.
And that was just so you know, strictly because this was just a draft.
It
And I
doesn't
didn't
matter.
want it to, yeah,
Not
okay, understood.
anybody here can have it anytime. They're basically the only document you can't have in a town is someone's personnel file, and even that has some access.
Anybody else have any comments?
I
Peter?
have a question because I'm a little confused on where that leaves us with respect to the signs that we've been talking about, which seem to be the major focus of.
Yeah, that's gonna come up
Conversation.
under old business, because we're gonna decide on the signs on old business, whether to go for, because I guess we would have to, actually let the selectmen know that we want to do signs.
You would need to make a
Yeah.
proposal with a total, the
Right.
location,
But
and a
I think we
justification.
realized from
Yeah.
our inventory that the signs are needed. I mean,
Mhm.
When,
there are places where you wouldn't even be able to find this road without a sign there. There are places where the print on the signs is completely washed out.
they're blank, the
Yes,
signs are blank.
Mhm.
When we do the.
that was the purpose of the tour.
Yeah.
The guiding principles were separate. I think that, Jean has been preparing, but with the last 2 or 3 meetings, we've been talking about plastics roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it all came about. Yes, Peter.
So are the signs specifically exempted from a ban on expenditures?
So you can
No.
sign a road. And that's about it.
Okay,
Yeah, and this is what I said, it's like really, class 6 roads are really like
'Cause
one of
we-
these weird anomalies. It's like you can't. But we can sign the end of the road, like you could have it as a street sign, but, so it's basically a street sign.
okay.
So you're not spending money on the road, you're signing that the road exists.
The few that are
I
there.
That's a lot of these questions.
Yeah, the few that are there,
Mhm.
as I understand it, the Conservation Commission paid for those years ago.
Yeah.
The ones that are there.
Mhm. And they say per order of the select board, not that it's not the order of the select board, that's
Selectmen.
anyway, or
Selectmen,
selectmen, which we're gonna make
maintain
the
that.
select board.
So I have one more,
Yes,
one more point. Early on our tour, there was a discussion of the sign on George Hill Road. Does everyone
yeah.
recall that discussion? I went and looked at it the other day. It is on the Enfield side of the Enfield Town Line sign. The town line, as I read the map, hits it at such an angle that the Class 6 road proceeds directly into Enfield from George Hill Road. There may be 10 feet that's still in Enfield. but I'm sorry, I may have misspoken. It's,
Mostly in Springfield?
The one that
it
goes,
proceeds into directly into Springfield, yes.
my understanding from John Carr when I walked it last time and
Here it is.
it goes, it like straddles. And I don't know to what degree. I'm not gonna-
There seems to be about a few feet inside, and I sent Kurt
Yeah.
pictures of it.
They
There-
sent me those, I'm just passing.
Yeah,
out.
because you have to go
okay.
over the mound of dirt from the years of plowing.
No, that's on the other side of the road.
Thank you.
The sign is on both signs. The Enfield Town Line sign and the Class 6 road sign are both on the, I guess, northeast or
Yeah.
east side of the
The
road.
downhill side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes,
Oh, I know what they look like. Yeah, I'm familiar with.
Similar
those
to ours, only,
but it proceeds directly into to Springfield
Yeah.
Yeah.
from the road.
Yeah, because I think that one's, the downhill one isn't ours and the uphill one is ours. Then it goes to a cemetery. That's really hard to find.
Shirley, I got two more things.
Okay,
I'd
well,
like to
there's no
say.
sign on that side of the road at all. There's just that big pile of plow debris.
Um. Thinking about this, thinking about the signage, I mean, we saw Mud Pond Road was one of the first ones second one we looked at. And there were enough signs on that road. There were like 4 or 5, there were at least 4 signs. And I think if you think about that and how long the whole thing is, it's probably proportionate to like the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey, having all these signs all over the place. So there's an abundance of signs there. And then there are other places that, as Shirley pointed out, the signs were just these posters on trees that you couldn't read anymore and were worthless because they didn't.
No signs.
It was the same as not having a sign. But
And-
in thinking about all this, yeah, Mud Pond is probably a good one to have a bunch of signs on, but there might be some of these signs, or some of these roads that people really don't want to advertise that you can use them for wheeled vehicles and things like that. And there's a lot of emotions, and I can probably think of a couple of examples here where
Did you
if we
go,
put up signs there,
yeah.
you're
Did you go
gonna
to
get,
Chabaco?
we
Yeah.
didn't get out to
Yeah.
Chicago, but
Because Chabaco goes right through someone's lawn. I'm not saying they would be a hard time. They're very nice people, but if you didn't go to Chabaco, you would.
yeah, so we're gonna have to be aware of these things. But the other thing I want to say is I did get those 24 slides that I took, pictures that I took to Rob. And we did put them on a flash
Yeah,
drive.
Rob let me know.
And okay, great.
The red, it's right here.
It's that one. If we want to move to that now, I'll be glad to explain each picture since I took them. I know what they represent and I've got notes on them. So those that weren't on the tour can see what we saw.
Do we want to do it under old business with the?
Well, do we want to continue discussing this guiding principle, and decide
Right.
where we're gonna
we
take it?
split,
Yeah, because I have
Yeah.
a few comments
Yeah.
regarding this.
well, do you have comments you said, Tom?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think, the goal, if I remember through all the discussions, and Gene, this is obviously a lot of work you put into this, so I appreciate all the work you've done and on this. It's definitely took a lot of time. But from a lot of the discussions we have, I think the main thing we want to do is to partner with these local organizations.
Yeah.
In order to get them to do the volunteer work on it, because obviously we can't.
Right.
And that's gonna achieve the goal what you were looking at, is get these roads fixed. And so that to me is, we need to kind of highlight that as the goal here. And then, looking at this, I had just some issues with concerns that we're putting a lot of word not a lot of words, but some words regarding, cost and feasibility, economic feasibility and stuff. I think that needs to be eliminated because we can't. So we gotta be
Okay.
careful that we don't have anything regarding costs in it. And then, as far as next steps are concerned, I just thought we could add something between 2 and 3 to basically prioritize the roads that
Right.
need maintenance and repair.
Yep.
So I think that would be a good thing to do. And then, adding to item 5 on next steps was to, work with town and volunteer organizations.
Mhm.
Just
Okay.
that wording, because I think that's, like I said, with the goal, I think is key here to do that.
Perfect. thank you.
I would say you can't work with the town to implement, right? You just can't. Because the town can't implement and we can't implement. You can facilitate volunteers, you can give them good information, but there's no way to make a recommendation to the town to do this work because the town can't do it. That's really the big thing.
So we should just change that to work with volunteers.
Yeah, facilitate volunteers, something about facilitating volunteers instead of working with the town.
Got it.
And I was curious, the town requires an updated overview of all class 6 roads. Is
That's
that
not true.
I just questioned if it did, because I wasn't aware that it was. So some of that wording should just be removed.
Where is that on?
It's in the middle of background.
Okay.
The middle of
Are we-
what? Background, did you say?
Yeah, so where you
Okay.
have like
Required.
third, where it starts, the
Okay.
town is
Yeah,
jurisdiction
yeah,
over
yeah.
6 roads. I would put a period there and then get rid of like the rest of that sentence and the whole next
Yeah.
sentence.
Okay.
Again, because it's.
Because there is no
we're-
resource or
yeah,
budget or.
Yeah, we're stating things in there
Yeah.
is a little beyond.
Yep, well, that's why we're bringing it up, for discussion, and people had a chance to look at.
Yeah, and same thing, the Conservation Commission is not charged, right? You only get a charge from the select board. And this is outside the Conservation Commission's purview within state law. You have no dominion over roads at all. You can make recommendations like not run over an animal on the road. And pick salamanders off the road, right? Like things like that, but the actual road, that's a planning component, right? And it's something that belongs to operations. So the day-to-day operations of roads actually belong within operations themselves. So it's nice to discuss this, but again, it's something, if you get charges, like you are put on this committee by the select board and you get charges from the select board. I know it's a technicality, but that's how.
So we would.
Probably kind of
present our
your thought.
final, recommendations
Mhm.
for select board approval. So we
Mhm.
need to do-
Yeah, right. Which, again, in my thinking of on behalf of the town, I understand now that we should just say it's anything we do is on behalf of the select board, which was was in my mind, but I think it misrepresents that. So we'll easily change that.
And I think that what's important is to know is that if you don't have some of these commissions that we are lucky enough in subcommittees that we have in Enfield, then the select board is responsible for this work. So I also think it's really important to know that, like, I personally can tell you, I'm very thankful that I don't have to do every one of these things in every meeting. It saves us. And I also think it incorporates a lot more ideas and a lot better viewpoints, and it gives us a chance to take in real expertise that 5 people might not have. So it's not that you're not valued, it's that it's just, you guys are essentially, ordained to do the work of the select board and follow state law.
Right.
And all that.
Thank you, Jay. Do you have any comments? I'm gonna.
I understand all of this. I think, a benefit of the work, any kind of work we would do is just, we could recommend in, town, recreational kind of guides as any of these class 6 roads that might have potential as recreational, for recreational purposes, whether it's walking, riding a horse or whatever, but I could see them being listed along with our trails as being a nice place to take a walk. There's some great recreational opportunities on those trails that we checked on Sunday. Some of them are really nice places to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they should be listed somewhere as a recreational opportunity on the town's, somewhere in the town's guides. So that's all I really have to say.
Or anyone from the public have something they'd like to add? Conversation.
I'm new to all this, but, with other committees and stuff that report to the select board and don't have independent authority, you're basically just making recommendations to the select board. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's an important job. I also get nervous about getting so far into the body of the work, finding out they're not gonna say yes for some reason or another. And then, so I wanna make sure that whatever body of work we decide to do, take it early on, make your presentation, get whatever blessing, come back and do the work.
And if it doesn't get blessed, we don't do the work.
Or you think about how,
Yeah.
or think about how or why, right? Because I don't think it's a yes or a no. Like,
Yeah.
everybody is a reasonable person and we'll have a conversation and say, you know, maybe it's, we don't feel comfortable with tax dollars, or it might honestly, like, here's a really great example. We have a ton on the plate of executive leadership in this town. And every time you add to their plate, it's a chance to like drop a ball accidentally on something very, very important. So does this meet our strategic goals, right? So we ask those questions, like, does this meet our strategic goals? You know, will this have some kind of value add? Will it cost tax dollars? So it can be, you can go with a very good idea, and it's just,
Yeah.
you guys have a good idea of how much money we've spent and how many projects we've had going recently. It's a lot.
And I think the main thing, we all came to conclusion was the volunteers doing work where they needed to, that wasn't gonna cost the town anything, and also checking to see what signs need to be replaced. As we found out that, and also we talked about guiding principles to encourage people who use them to think about preserving and not doing damage to the trails when they did use them. But
Yeah, some of the trails serve no purpose at all, and they could just blend away and disappear.
right.
You know, there's some of them that just,
Mhm.
there's no point there.
Travel does keep them open.
Right, but some of them were hard to really even notice.
Right, you wouldn't.
They were hard to find. I mean,
I think I probably go
But
more.
without your tape, we wouldn't have seen half.
Yeah.
I put the tape up a week prior and I still drove by a couple of them because I know it's around here somewhere, but I was.
I usually take it
But
out.
it was another thing that was really enjoyable was the thinking about the history
Mhm.
of these trails and the heritage. to
And
the
that belongs to
community.
Heritage Commission. So if we were really interested in addressing that, we might write to them and see if they were interested, because that is their
'Cause I
purview.
mean, these were the roads that were used before our roads that we're using today. And it was really neat to be out there.
So here's the Potato Road.
Pardon me?
The Potato Road is named because farmers drove potatoes down the Potato Road to the train station from my farm.
So it's really nice to think about, and like you say, the Heritage Commission would probably be interested in wanting to preserve that history too.
Yeah, and I think that's part of engaging people and just raising interest, because the more of our neighbors have an interest, the more that maybe they might say, hi, excuse me, I noticed you're digging a giant hole for no reason in the middle of this road.
Right.
Because some of it is on us, right? I just got an email today that told me all that beautiful work on Mud Pond Road. There is a person who lives on that road driving up and down it right now with a dirt bike, like digging a giant hole.
Because to me,
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to see them changed at all. I would just love to see people more aware of the where they are and the history of them. But that's what I think is neat. It was for us the other day. We were out there
Mhm.
4.5 hours just looking at these roads, and we all, I think I can speak for everyone, it was very enjoyable.
When you do, Jay, I'm gonna pick on you because you do the really nice walks for Old Home Days. Is this an opportunity to partner with Heritage and get something different on the docket for Old Home Days? I'm not saying we have to change, but just
that's a decent idea.
because we're talking about the heritage component and engagement and really, making sure we are doing that
Yeah.
conservation piece and tying it to heritage so that people see the innate history and value.
Yeah, there's probably some potential there.
I don't know.
That's-
I know it's a lot of, but you might pick one, and I'm not saying change your hike, but it's because Cole Pond, I think, is pretty popular.
I know, yes and no, I mean.
Okay.
No, but that's a decent idea. It might get some interest if people want to explore Class 6 roads in terms of history. Old County definitely has some old, foundations up
Mhm.
there, that's for one. I'm sure there's plenty more in some of those other sites. There's a few of them that I haven't walked yet. But I think Old County is one of my favorites. What's another good one? Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll put some thought into that.
The other thing is maybe you don't lead a walk on everyone, but you are able to put into the Old Home Days program
Yeah,
some ideas for self-guided opportunities that we could flag.
right.
That's different than working on the road. that's old home days. Do you see where I'm going here? I'm not trying to mislead
No.
people, but I want to have that engagement. I'm not against doing.
Well, that's
this. I'm
what
trying to
I
figure out how we get it done.
I don't think anyone looked at any of those roads thinking of working on them.
No,
No, that wasn't epic at all. Craig, do you have something you want to?
Yes, regarding Old County Road. The controversy is that the people who own the land at the Route 4 end of it.
Right.
There is no room there for parking, and therefore it should not be publicized to people as a place to go hiking, because they're gonna drive there and leave their cars. But there is somewhere along that road, a place for parking, then that would be appropriate, but not now.
Yeah,
Certainly a consideration.
Or make a partnership with a nearby organization.
Whatever.
Yeah, do something that is accessible and polite to.
Mhm.
Okay, well, do we want to proceed with, our ideas and bring them to the select board?
Well, I definitely been taking notes, so, we can at least begin by revising this draft, which was, a lot of good input. And
Shall we
then we've
think-
got, sorry?
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. When you revise it, we can send it out again and maybe make a final decision with what, revisions, the next meeting? What do you
Sure.
think?
However you
Right.
want to, however you
Well-
want to proceed.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's a good idea to pursue this. And we've been talking about it the last 3 meetings. And
Yeah.
I think we've come up with a win-win situation.
Yeah.
That we just need to tiptoe and make sure we follow the right rules and regulations. I still think we can get where we want to get to, which is to get these volunteer organizations to improve those that need work on.
Right,
And,
Which is the
and
end.
there was a lot of discussion about signs and just, figuring out the right way to address that. There's ideas about the Heritage Commission and, all of us, I think, came away kind of inspired by the feeling of history out there with the roads. And, what a shame for people to not know about them. So if that's the avenue, super, And then we facilitating the volunteer organizations to, pick up a dead log or whatever is appropriate there.
right. Okay. Then we will, proceed with the revision and maybe contacting, sending the revision to the Heritage Commission might be a good idea. Okay, so seeing is on the class, we've already touched on this a bit, but you'd like to show your pictures of our tour?
yeah, so everybody else that
Yeah.
didn't make the tour can see them.
I think they've heard about what it involved, but it would be nice to show.
I wish I could have been there.
I know
Oh, you-
you wanted to go.
Would have enjoyed it.
I'm sure I would have.
Um. So. This is the first one. The first one we stopped at was Dustin Road, which is off of Lock Haven.
Mhm.
And it goes through to Klug Road. So it's like a little walking path
yeah.
and there's no signage. Nobody would know.
So this is John Klug's property. He came and talked to us.
On the other side, is
He
John.
came and talked to us.
Yeah, this is the other end.
Yeah, this is the other end. And we do have a picture of his area.
I'm very familiar.
Same. So, and then the next slide, so this is Mud Pond Road. And these are some of the signs that are on it, okay? Class 6 road, pass at own risk, dead end. And then the next sign, or the next one just shows Mud Pond Road. All right, and a couple of our adventurers.
Actually,
And then,
it's showing it as the class 6 road, but really the class 6 road doesn't start until the gate.
yes.
Correct, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, and that's what I was gonna get up to. In this picture, you can see the gate if you look
Mhm.
far ahead. But there are 2 more signs. There's danger warning sign.
Just a second, Davey.
I
Yeah,
gotta mute mine, sorry.
Yeah, that happens.
So if we go to the next picture, we can see both of these signs closer up. All right, and I guess these are important signs to have there. And then the one, no vehicles over 1,000 pounds per Enfield Board of Selectmen. One of the things we talked about, if we're gonna do signs, is to change that to the select board. So change the terminology on that sign.
And this is something that we can engage the town on. This 1,000 pound limit is in order and it is in place, and
Mhm.
I was told today that vehicles that are like military vehicle that's obviously over 1,000 pounds is going down it. I'm
Yeah.
like, so things like that we can engage and learn about. And ask the right questions, because sometimes just knowing the right, I don't know the answer, so I went to Roy today, for example, and said, what is allowed? Cause I do not know. Like, I assume you probably can't run a Unimog down it.
Yeah, pretty much anything more than a four-wheeler is gonna weigh more than 1,000 pounds.
That's right.
I know.
Okay, this is a good sign. If we're gonna do one sign that we're gonna have on some of these roads, if they get approved by the select board, stating it's a class 6 road, it's not maintained past your own risk, no wheeled vehicles. I don't know if you wanna put the 1,000 pounds on there also.
You have to, that was,
You have to, okay,
the RSA's only refer to weight limits.
okay,
So you need the 1,000 pounds
okay,
on that sign. I mean, you can say real vehicles over 1,000 pounds or greater or something to that
Okay.
effect, but
But is that the limitation only during those dates?
During the mud season.
well.
yeah.
See, and the other side was
no
saying,
Vehicles without a weight at any period of time.
okay,
Have to have a weight. It can be a 365-day term period, or
Yeah.
it can be mud season term period with weight.
Okay.
One day I noticed like Springfield had a spring by order of Springfield Selectmen. It might be a good idea to add the Enfield Select Board.
Select board, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking changing that to say something like that, yeah.
I would propose though, if you have a working sign that could be modified with a sticker and you're relatively happy, like try not to spend more money.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I
think
just want to be
that,
really conscious about how much money we've spent as a town recently.
I think we might be able to find them a lot more reasonable.
yeah, I have an
But,
idea on
and
that.
Jim said he had a couple other vendors. I haven't heard back from him on those yet.
I also know a fellow, Joe Tatro, who does detailing on race cars and stuff, and I think he's made signs before, and he's a personal friend of mine. I could call him and see if he could give us a bid too, if you want me to.
That would be good.
Yeah, you just have, Jim has, because you have to follow our purchasing policy,
Mhm.
so check it, I would check in with Jim.
Okay. This sign is on Hazen Road, that's the class 6 that goes to Chabaco.
I've been here many times recently. My dog tried to go there before I came here tonight. And that road's actually pretty good.
This next one, this is more of that same road.
Red Hazen, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the turnaround and that's private
Yeah.
property, yeah.
Yep. Okay, next is Goss Lane,
Somebody drove out there again.
which doesn't have a sign either. And there we have a nice mud puddle. And that
it's
is.
not a vernal pool.
No, that'd be a stretch. That'd be a stretch.
That's Witter Road. It's off Oak Hill,
What's its name?
Witter,
Oh, Witter.
Witter.
yeah.
WIT.
It goes down to boys camp.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
on the way to Boys Camp.
That was really a surprising one. You would have never known it was there because there's a mailbox and there's a house that you
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah.
And it just looks like someone's home.
I'm the weirdo who walks in the woods, aren't I?
Yeah.
I've been on like, I'm on this.
Yeah. And it's, part of it, it's maintained as a lawn. You go to the house and it's all mowed and everything and that's where it goes, right down.
Yeah,
And we found
yeah, we saw.
when I
that
heard
house.
the name of the owner, it's actually someone who owns property on Holly Drive.
Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, that was a different one. I didn't,
It was just, it was very educational.
Okay, that next,
There's about this.
this is the same Same thing, it's just walking a little bit further.
Yeah, that's where it's, yeah, down past the house.
It's past the house. I should have
Yeah.
taken a picture of the
Yeah,
house.
that's,
too.
it goes downhill to boys camp, right?
No, not that one. Well, it probably would end up.
Yeah, that's where it goes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it would.
that's the
Yeah.
one that goes to boys camp.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
here
that's
we
one
go.
of the signs.
This is Pinnacle Road. It's off of Grafton Pond Road and it goes all the way to the Grafton town line.
Yes.
So if we did do a sign, we'd only need one end because it's,
That's why I thought it might be a good idea for people who aren't familiar to put the infield on the infield sign, on
Yeah.
sign that's on infield.
Like Enfield Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
yeah, but I think a smaller sign here just to say what it is.
There's, you know, some of these, we have to ask ourselves, does it have recreational value? But if
Yeah.
it doesn't, why bother putting a sign up?
Yeah,
That's right.
true.
It
That's a
has
good
no
point.
recreational value.
Yes,
Just let it go back to trees.
Maybe a spreadsheet of name, location, and then, yeah, like yours, so that's a justification, so when it goes before the select board, whatever you're proposing, it's all in a nice little grid.
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I ask, is there any other reason for the sign? Is it required for liability or any other consideration?
The communication tool to
Yeah.
help people not to trash their vehicle.
Yeah, lets people know that it's a class 6 road and you can walk it if you want. It kind of identifies them, Peter, you know?
That it doesn't create a liability if we don't post
I don't know.
hazard warning or something like that?
No, it's just
Create a blanket policy on that.
So this is the Pinnacle Road.
Yeah.
That was the sign to it, and this is the Pinnacle Road. This was kind of a cool one. It kind of goes right along the stream, right?
Yeah, basically the road is part of this, part of the road is the stream bed.
Come stream, yeah.
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 There's an important fact that I leave out or we leave out in this process. Feel free to jump in and
Yeah.
throw it out there, because you're a wealth of information there. Okay, this one here is Good Hill Road. It's off of
good view.
Good View Hill Road, sorry.
Yeah.
It's off of Route 4A.
Mhm.
And this one joins Hackett Road,
Mhm.
okay?
It goes to Butternut Pond and all that.
This one might have potential for a heritage walk. That's a lot going on up that road. It's a nice walk too.
Yeah, oh, it's beautiful out there.
Yeah,
Mm.
And there's some neat woods roads. And
Yeah.
the state has done a lot of conservation work
yeah.
with, like their cuts so that it
Yeah.
rebrushes for birds up there.
Mm.
That, in terms of conservation, that's a very interesting space.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you like those views?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all kind of plastic signs.
That's the economy model.
Yeah.
This is still Good Hugh Hill Road. And we don't know what those signs say.
No,
There's a wheel on there.
we don't know what they once said.
Yeah, okay, this is
That's
the,
the,
Yeah,
Okay.
Hackett.
that's Hackett, that's the other end of
They
it.
did that.
Yeah,
yeah,
So if we did signs for this, there'd be one on Hackett and one on Good Hugh Hill
I
Road.
think we do need to ask the question though, and I started to ask it today, and I need to talk to Ed more on this.
Mm.
When the state goes on a class 6 road and destroys it,
Yeah,
are they allowed to fix it? Because I feel like they were allowed to put down gravel in the first place.
yeah.
Are they allowed to destroy this road? Yeah, I mean,
it's a good, very good
I
question.
was very disappointed to see how much damage.
They're not careful, it's
That is
a
trash.
2-lane, big enough to be a 2-lane road now.
Craig
Yeah.
might have an answer.
Craig?
Okay.
Yeah.
I am in contact regularly with the New Hampshire Forest and Lands Regional Forester for the Central Region, who has the oversight of this operation. That is the log landing
Yeah.
for a timber harvest on Fish and Game land.
Yes.
They went in there in the winter, they did their harvesting, and by the time the town posted the roads against heavy vehicles on March 4th, they were done. They took their equipment out of there, and then they have to leave it as it is for a little while until it dries out a bit. Then the plan is to go in there and regrade it and install, fairly large water bars.
Okay.
And finally, to sow it with grass, usually a 50-50 mix of, fescue and winter rye.
Mm.
That grass will stabilize the soil.
Not conservation at all, no mix.
Excuse me, what?
No conservation mix, huh?
For all I know, that is what they're going to use. The point is that what you're seeing is the landing after or just before the, logging was done, but before they had got in there to, sculpt it and reseed it.
Do you think we could ask them when they do that, if they could leave some space there that could be just like a parking area where people could just park? Cause there's no place to park normally on that road,
No.
and to use as a recreation area, that would allow some people to leave their car and proceed up Hackett to Goodhue. Cause on Goodhue, there's a few cars you can put on the side of the road, but not a lot. That was just a thought.
So you're thinking to, use that landing for, more parking?
For parking, yeah, for a few cars.
Okay, and then the next matter is, of course, you're going to have to properly tend the road which you're dealing with here. Here's the thing. It is not in the state plans, it's not in Forest and Lands plans that, they set that up, with, you know, what you would need for grading and drainage, et cetera, for parking. So if the town wants that to be done, the town had better be talking with that regional forester really soon, because when things dry out, they're going to go in and they're going to renaturalize that.
Oh,
In other words, don't waste a day.
Yeah.
Surely if you talk to Ed, cause he would be probably the one with the most clout on that.
Hmm.
He could assign it to another department head, but
Yeah.
if it's urgent, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, and ask the question. I'm not saying we can make it happen, but certainly
Yeah.
for her to ask.
It doesn't need to be fancy, just needs to be some space that would,
Yeah.
flat space where people could plop their
It
cars.
has to be properly drained.
Yeah, yes, that's true, yeah.
Cause right now,
That is not optional. That's a very wet mountainside.
Yeah,
yeah, the last time I parked on Goodhue and slapped my car like sideways, which
Mm.
not great, but not blocking the road. I didn't want to walk from the
The
bottom.
last point I'd make is who is going to pay for that upgrade for materials and for.
Right, the state wants to dish the money out,
Yeah, we'll see.
cause that's pretty much the only option unless.
Okay, next one is Fuller Road.
Mhm.
And yet another different sign. And I believe this next picture is also Fuller Road.
Yeah.
What's that, a snowmobile sign or something?
yeah, that's just.
They,
Oh, yes.
Fuller connects two ways at the top. You can come up off of Mascoma Heights as well out of the development. So a lot of that land falls in the Mascoma Heights development. And they have water rights over on Mascoma Lake, so it gets some decent foot traffic.
Oh,
In addition to, you can nicely ride your snowmobile down to the lake.
They have some of the nicest beach, they say, that's there.
They do. I grew up on Park.
okay, now this one, this is back, remember the very first slide?
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
Dustin Road to Klug. This is the other end of it. This is Klug Road going to Dustin.
And all of it belongs to John, just so you know. All of it.
The whole thing?
Yep, the whole thing.
How does it feel about signs?
So
Well,
Dustin,
he-
It literally is right on the map, Kurt. You can disagree with
No,
John.
no, I'm just, when you're saying all of it, he doesn't,
It's a right of,
there's a class 6 roads.
it's a right of way to pass
I
over.
mean, he owns
Sorry.
both sides of the roads.
It passes right through his property. Yep.
the
Well,
whole,
it's
the
not
road all
where
the
his
way to Dustin.
Yes, and that's all I'm asking. But it's still a class 6 road that goes,
Yeah.
and that's where it is, so.
Yeah, roads are a right of way to pass
Same
through.
as, same
someone's-
as any other abutter on any other class 6 road.
Yeah. And so that the way it's been staying open is, and Dolores in particular has championed making sure this gets cleaned up and has done a lot of volunteer time doing it.
Yeah, yeah, they also made a trail from there down to the lake.
It's kind of neat because people will walk their dogs down and make the loop back up.
That was Crystal.
It's a pretty good, it's a nice trail.
Yeah,
And it lands in front of me.
nice recreational area. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's nice that they do that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they welcome people to use that one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. In Sunrise Farm, which is, yeah.
My sisters,
Yeah, which is, Visions.
Yeah.
Now is up there, which is beautiful.
This one is the other end of Witter Road.
Mhm.
So this is off of Boys Camp going to Oak Hill.
Looking up the hill.
So again, this is, if we were to do signs, you would need it on both ends.
is inside.
Yeah, there was a sign of something. And I think now we're into some of the roads off of Route 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This-
the dollar store.
This is Lindop.
Lindop
right?
Lane.
Lindop.
I know Lindop Lane very well. Lindop Lane was going to be the access point for the school district to access their rear parcel.
So it's Lindop Lane, not road.
It doesn't go very far in Enfield, right? It just ends, I mean, do you keep going into Canaan?
It goes into West Farms Road and,
Oh.
yeah.
Only a very small portion of that parcel, even the field you can see is in Enfield.
Yeah, so that's something may not even be worth putting a sign on, because it's kind of growing into itself, you know?
It depends, and some of it would depend, say someday the school district decided they wanted to do something with the property, you might find it changes, but you
Yeah.
always go back.
Yeah.
I will tell you, up at the top of that parcel, there are some beautiful vernal pools you can't touch.
Oh, really?
Yes, because the school district, when we were redoing and
Oh.
looking at how to lay out potential new
They
schools,
used to be a big farm up there. I can
Yeah.
remember when the Cummings lived there.
and the farmers dug ponds, which was fine back then, and now you can't move them without serious mitigation project.
Sounds like another reason not to post it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that family was very active in the community too. He was a long time selectman.
They weren't.
Speaking of vernal pools,
I don't think it's supposed to be a vernal pool, but yeah.
yeah. This is Lovejoy Brook Road off of Route 4.
That whole area.
And that's another one that goes all the way into Canaan and West Farms.
Go up to May Street. If you take a wrong turn on the snowmobile trail, you end up on top of Moose Mountain.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in that pool,
Yeah, there was a lot of water flowing through
but
there.
there was a lot going on. There was critters in there.
Oh, yeah.
The area was wet.
In that area of town, if you back up onto Route 4, you have seen, it used to be Raphael's Kachina, that blank, that empty lot.
Yeah.
It's basically very hard. I can tell you just in terms of having businesses look at it to try to acquire it. It's right now listed in a federal floodplain zone, and so some of that has to do with
Oh,
and while we're doing, and the select board has authorized a floodplain study, but I think it's a particularly challenging area all around for us.
that's what I call the ghost town. It's awful. They need to get that stuff out of there and do something.
I think there've been plenty of people who wanted to do different things, but, banks, lenders, they don't finance in zones. They like cash,
Yeah.
and maybe you just never get insurance.
Okay, the last two pictures that's just the signage for Old County Road off of Route 4.
That's all county.
And that's Old County Road Trail.
And that gravel was put in by that did go for authorization. The property owner, when he subdivided, was authorized to do that. And since it's a good example of an upgrade that was done with permission.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, that he never built anything up there, right?
Mhm.
But wasn't there a stipulation that he was gonna allow some parking space
At the end.
at the end where
Yeah.
his house was gonna be?
And there were a lot of questions centered
Yeah.
around the width of the road and how it was
Right.
measured and, yeah, and also, not causing damage to Route 4.
Right, but he never did anything. It's for sale again, I guess, the property.
Is it,
Yeah, it is.
it was
It's posted.
Allison before I had. it.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that.
That, yeah. And the other end goes to nowhere now because Hanover gave that land back.
Oh, it's great for walking. It goes from Lebanon to Hanover.
Well,
It's
you can't,
beautiful.
technically, it's not public property though. It's not a public way in that side.
This signs say public allowed. All it says is no wheeled vehicles.
Yeah, no, the landowner can, I'm saying, but the
Yeah.
Hanover and Lebanon.
Yeah.
don't go.
It looks like it's a trail. I think that they converted to a class 5 trail, maybe.
I think they gave it to the property.
Point of information, what is a class 5 trail?
Or class B trail,
Yeah.
sorry. Sorry
Class
for
5
terminology.
That's-
That's
Okay.
great.
I'm not an expert on any kind of.
Thank you, Ed, for sharing those. And I also, I wanted to say, Jean, I know Jean has written notes to go along with those
Yeah.
pictures. And thank her for the time she's put in and is planning to continue.
And if we end up, I'm not gonna let this thing go about the pamphlet. If we end up getting permission to do that, I would be glad to work on it. And Jean, if you would be willing to work on
You
it.
bet.
I'd like to work
Absolutely.
with.
If you,
You bet.
if it's something, Shirley, when you have a conversation with Ed,
Mhm.
I'm happy to do, if you want some graphic help. It's not that I'm opposed to doing it, but like, I'm good with, stuff.
Good.
Very good.
That was one of my earlier ones. I don't have a graphics degree though. Don't ask me anything too fancy.
Okay, so does anyone else have any comment before we move on?
We
I
wanna,
hope you all, what people weren't there, had a better idea of
no, good to see.
what there
good to
is
see.
out there.
Do you wanna finalize what we want on the sign? I mean, I think
We're gonna go down to.
oh, his sign's coming down, sorry.
Old business,
Okay, yep,
okay.
okay.
Okay, the trails update, Craig, you're up next.
Right, thank you.
While he's getting
Please,
ready to
John.
talk, I'm gonna circulate 3 pictures. I have 2 before pictures and 1 of the final bridge that we'll.
Sorry, I'm coughing over here. It's not computer. It's called I didn't take my inhaler.
All right.
It won't die.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm trying to open my. Wow.
Very nice.
Craig, I noticed you put,
Very nice.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Or it's the top.
Craig, I noticed you put something in the town newsletter too.
I
Right.
didn't know about any town newsletter.
You didn't?
Oh, really?
Who put that
I
in?
don't know anything about it.
I assumed it was you. There's like a 2-sentence thing about the fact that the bridge work was done.
That we build a bridge. Rather we, did some R&R and, approved the bridge. So what have you got there? Is that, just being passed?
These are just some pictures that
Those are
Ed is
pictures.
passing
Good.
around.
No,
Okay.
distraction.
Right, short version is that,
Oh, these
Yeah.
are of the bridge you just rebuilt, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just about to get to.
I'm
that.
sorry.
Yes.
Peter?
I thought he was still passing pictures from what he took on Sunday. I didn't
No.
realize.
No,
Sorry.
that's the bridge.
Okay,
Okay, after, I'm gonna say hibernating through 24. It turns out to be a advantageous time to revive the volunteer trail committee. So I took names from the contact list that, I had from 23 and emailed them all. And we had about 6 people responding and 4 of them actually turned out. That was on Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Before that, I had spent between 6 and 8 hours at, measuring the existing structure and drawing up, a materials list, talking that over with the Director of Public Works for his input, which I value. Then I was given a account number so that I can purchase items on the town's account at La Valley's, which I did, the PT and the fasteners. Then I also went and purchased 2 by 8 by 10 foots at Wright's Portable Mill in Whiteridge Junction. Full dimension rough sawn hemlock. The best bridge deck we have. I had that sawed into lengths of 3 foot 3 inches, so as to have 1.5 inch overhang on each side of the stringers of the bridge, which is going to make it the whole thing last much longer because there is no place for water to pool and get into the end grain of the bridge deck and make them rot sooner than they otherwise would have to. That being said, we had all the materials and so on in my truck. And I was able to bring them in one trip to the site. And we had, as I say, 4 of the volunteers. And we proceeded to, basically, we removed one side of the old handrail. And then we immediately installed new posts and a cap rail on top of it. So as to provide a place for people to grab onto in case they were maybe going to fall off. Because you are several feet above the brook there and it's lined with rocks and well, I almost fell off one once and I'm not going to take that chance again. So that's the first thing we did. Put up the new posts and a temporary cap rail. Then we were able to move along and to remove the other side. Then we were able to remove about 2 old deck boards and add one, so that we always had room, but we also always had something to kneel on. With, you know, those pieces of foam you use in the garden for kneeling?
Yeah.
They're absolutely a godsend when you're trying to kneel on deck boards and screw them in.
Thank you.
As our new pad.
That should help, that should help. So as you can see in the photos here, what we have is what it looked like at the beginning. And you can even see the rot in the deck boards. One person actually put their foot through that.
Oh.
Yeah, it was time to get this job done.
I guess everybody through.
Yes.
Oh,
You did too?
no, you did it all, very close to going all the way through.
So having a team of talented workers, some were, the West Carpenter did most of the deck boards and so forth. And the rest of us were largely gophers and we did demo on the components and we saved all the nails and I threw them in recycling. The end result, what we have now, after the expenditure of about $320, this is what you can see if you go down the trail a bit. You might see it as you're looking through the woods as you're headed to Danfield. But you've got still the same 6x6 pressure treated stringers ready to ground contact. I pried up the ends and made sure they really are sound. So we didn't have to jack them up and put a new sill under them. You have the new pressure treated posts, 4 instead of 3 per side. They are 2x4s. They are held in by GRK RSS structural screws, which replace lag bolts that used to be used. And a good thing it is too. Then you have a cap rail and 2 side rails, which do really well at keeping the walkers on the bridge. And in the unlikely event somebody falls, you've got a mid rail there to grab on. Those are held in with, I think it's 2.5 inch deck screws. And lastly, you have the new deck of rough sawn full dimension hemlock, which is also held in by deck screws, but those are 4 inches long because you got 2 inches just of thickness of hemlock. In other words, never mind all the details, this is much sounder, stronger, and likely to last a good 20 years before needing any significant repair or attention. And as I say, the expenditure in town is about $320 to $330.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you.
It's not amazing, it's just a matter of knowing materials and knowing the importance of preparing things in advance.
Just think
I
of it.
cut everything to size and I treated the cut ends as the manufacturers recommend. So that all we had to do was unload the kit, take it down there, demo the old stuff, put down the new. We didn't have to cut anything to size because it had all been pre-planned. Thing of it is that in things like bridges, you can do this because the dimensions are generally very predictable. If you're building other kinds of things like, you know, water bars or steps or something like that, not so much. Bridges are predictable.
Can you imagine how much value your time was too? if you.
I will tell you that the latest value that the federal government assigns to volunteers as the value of their labor to be used as a matching share when when the people where they're working and so on applies for a federal recreational trails program grant. They value our volunteer labor at $35 an hour as of last year.
Well, if you added that to it, just think,
In that case, you're going to have to add, I'm going to say, 24 hours value. 24 hours of volunteer time, times $35, whatever that is. Yeah,
a lot.
it's enough. It helps. Now, that's one project that was entirely necessary due to the fact that it was rotten enough that it was unsafe. Now, not so unsafe. The next things we can do in this season is probably on a weekday, we'll get together with a few volunteers and some hand tools, and we will patrol trails for bow downs and cutting back the branches and so forth. And once that is cleared up, there's some of them that want to have their blazing repainted.
If either of you new people are interested in being on Craig's volunteer list, we can get your information. I'll get your info to
I
him.
already have you. Yeah.
He's got your
Dave, you
number.
had something.
No, I have his.
And he knows where I live.
I know.
He volunteered it.
I think two things. First, I believe you said that this was ADA, qualified.
The only thing that is
Except-
actually
yeah,
ADA specs happens to be the height of the handrails. You
Okay.
cannot take a wheelchair to it.
Right.
It
And the
probably also is a little narrow to use, especially if, God forbid, you expect one person in a wheelchair to wait on one end of the bridge while another person in a wheelchair moves towards them, like a one-lane bridge.
And we're all looking at the amazing thing about this Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. You can't contradict me on that.
we know that you're worth more than $25 an hour. We do.
Well, in that case, I am going to put my hand out. I'll take up a collection now. Thank you very much. Free will giving and not appropriated, so we can do that too.
We'll double your
No,
first
actually-
salary.
Oh, thank you.
Better go to the budget
Actually,
committee with that one, my friend.
Indeed.
Double.
Well, thank you.
Actually, I'm going to say one thing. I was taught by good people and I've been practicing this business for 40 years now. And this is, in terms of things more complicated than a bog bridge, this is about bridge number 27 that I have, worked on, built, I've learned from, that kind of thing. So I have a little experience.
Thank you very much to
Yep.
you and your volunteers.
Oh,
Job well done.
I've sent them already, did I not?
Yes, you did.
Okay, there you go.
Very nice.
The next thing we're gonna do is going to be, patrol trails for blow downs and brushing them and so forth. And then there's a couple of more bridge jobs that have to be done. But, we're gonna wait till after the state bird goes home. Now, who will tell me just what the state bird is?
No, because we're pretending they don't exist.
What?
We're pretending they don't exist.
Oh,
Black flies?
Mosquitoes.
nope,
The
the black fly is the state bird.
Oh.
Huh?
They're both bad.
All right, any more questions?
No.
I've bored you enough already?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to Elisa. So I know that this trail maps are updated in this a few sentences, but Elisa can put those pictures in so people can see them.
Yes, it'd be great.
Actually, Valerie,
Oh, Val took them?
Val has much better pictures than she has more pictures than I do. I think I have 3 pictures that she doesn't have, but she's got some really good ones.
Or do
So-
you,
Electronic version too, yeah.
Yeah,
so
so I mean,
however it happens, but
I'll be glad
Elisa,
to send you.
that's how all the wonderful newsletter updates happen is if Elisa gets them, or you can thoroughly, who can
I
compile
gotta
them.
send you the conservation thing so I can send those.
I'll send, okay, I'll send you the pictures. Valerie can do too.
Yeah.
You don't have one.
Sorry.
She's a little shy. I'll send her a
No,
note.
this is good.
But I'll
Be at the
send
next
mine.
meeting.
I've got like 8
Yeah.
photos,
First
but
Thursday.
Val's got some really
And you'll
good
be
ones. She got-
official and
Yeah, I did.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Happy-
I'm happy that you are on the, going to be on the commission.
Thanks for having me. This was a nice meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
We
Appreciate
caught
it.
we caught our dog before I made it to your house.
You what? You get,
We
get it?
caught the dog, yeah.
Okay, we still haven't got one. We haven't
He's
seen
been
one. yet.
by there.
Okay. well, I know what to do if I see him. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I'll try.
He likes snacks.
Okay, that's good. That's easy.
Jay?
We keep some treats.
Yeah, we should get moving. Yeah, I met today.
Thank you.
I did a presentation today at the Mascoma High School for the environmental sciences class, Jen Fitzgerald's class, and it went well. She brought 2 classes together in the library. It was a nice spot to do a presentation. It was the Speaking for Wildlife UNH Extension program, 350 years of New Hampshire wildlife. So that's the one I did for Old Home Days, and it went well. So that's that. I think next month we have Canaan Folk Conservation Commission here, and we're gonna talk about how we can combine our ideas to maybe moving forward next year and have us, both of our commissions represented at some programs at the school. I'd like to try to expand it from just the environmental science classes to maybe a bigger group at the school, if we could, do some stuff where we could get, an auditorium or something together once or twice a year and have both commissions come in and do a little bigger program, but we'll see. I know Canaan was meeting with the superintendent to discuss it, what they would wanted to do. So I think, we'll combine our efforts and work together moving forward, okay?
Yeah, sounds great. Any comments?
No, but thank you.
Yeah.
You do a great job.
No, that's what I like
Great
to do.
service to our youth.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we just need to get a bigger audience, but you can work on that. Time will get us there. Okay.
And Peter has a biochar basic intro he'd like to share with us.
Well, let's see if it comes up on the screen. In the meantime, is there a paper cup someplace?
Yeah, in the other room, if they're not by the water cooler, there's some by the sink usually. Do we know anything about this? What?
Hmm.
I mean, we should be use the regular sign in unless we didn't put a full copy of office on.
Okay, well, we're waiting to see if that comes up.
We should.
Rather than pass around this 10-pound bag of biochar, I'm gonna
Put sign in.
get a little sample in the cup.
Oh. Good.
Pass around.
Then type in
so you can see what I'm talking about.
it's this
I'm
meeting.
gonna save.
Try this. I think they have a full, they should have. I think we assigned them less than a full account.
a piece of this.
At least it shows PowerPoint.
Shared license.
This is the meeting, this is the meetings computer, like it's called meetings.
Okay.
So, and we show other PowerPoint, I don't know why it's doing this. Sometimes the computer in this room does some pretty cool things.
Don't taste it.
Don't taste it.
We're not asking. Does not have
I
office.
was looking for the mushrooms.
I didn't bring my Bob to the project.
Not much.
There you go.
Looks like,
Oh,
A lot of my,
enough times.
You can put it in, you can
Don't hit
put it
activate.
in slideshow mode or whatever's easiest for you.
Biochar.
There we go, perfect.
Magic explode.
I just kept everything out, so.
Thank you. Oh, I've seen this.
You've seen this bag too,
Oh, yeah.
I used it last year.
did you? Did it kill anything?
I didn't kill anything. I heard things.
All right.
We try to keep the plants alive. Keep it process.
Oh, we ready to go?
Yes.
All right, biochar really does do what is claimed about it up here. It
Mhm.
does, well, actually, this slide is about 10 years old and biochar was fairly early when this presentation was first presented. The promise has been fulfilled. Biochar does show tremendous improvement in agriculture, but it also does a lot of other things. Water retention, water filtering, by the way, bioremediation, energy production, and it is, when you use properly, can sequester carbon, and the whole process can actually be carbon negative. All it is charcoal. I don't know if anybody else grabbed a sample of it, but it is remarkably clean charcoal because it's produced at such a high temperature. In fact, there are two very important field tests when we're making biochar in the field or in a rudimentary device. One of them is the taste test.
She can taste it.
Done this in front of me and he still gets me every time.
Were you supposed to take a piece?
It should, oh yeah, let me pass it around again.
I will take you away from it.
You may know, well, charcoal is used in, toothpaste. A very high grade of this called activated carbon is used as a medicine for when you're swallowing when you swallow poison, because it is so adsorptive. The carbon itself has no flavor. So this should be as pure carbon as possible and have no flavor. Doesn't. The other test is, if you rub it on your fingers, unlike Kingsford charcoal or Cowboy or whatever else, there are no oils left in this. So it will come off just with water and with rubbing it.
You give me, I would.
You gotta get a piece.
No, I'm good.
And that is a
When I eat
function
a poison
of
mushroom, I will get some.
the way it is made. All right, next slide. This is a picture of magnification of just a pure biochar on the left, and then biochar with some mycorrhizal fungi growing on it on the right. You can see the cellular structure behind it. It's fine grained, highly porous, and it has two really interesting characteristics. One is adsorptivity, the same as activated carbon in a face mask filter or an aquarium. It actually has a slight electrostatic charge on it that grabs onto organic molecules and holds them. That's how a HEPA filter works. It actually attracts and holds organic molecules. In fact, it's so porous that a piece that weighs a gram, which is about the size of this one here, there's over 400 square meters of surface area, all folded up in this. Right now exposed to the atmosphere and a little bit of moisture in there, but the tremendous surface area and the tremendous adsorptivity is how it works its magic. So this is biochar. Next slide. Sorry, I forgot that I'm not operating the slides. On the left is my former business partner, Bob Wells, with 1 Cape Cod turnip grown on biochar.
Oh, my.
Any questions?
Wow.
On the right is where biochar was discovered, which is in the terra preta soils, the dark earths of South America. Before our European ancestors arrived there and ruined the civilization, they were supporting population of millions on biochar treated soil. That is a cross section of a soil excavation about 2 meters deep. And what you see on the right that looks like topsoil is topsoil. On the left is the natural tropical soils, which have almost no biology, no life, no fertility, no organic matter in them, because all of that stuff is up in the trees. It leaches out of the soil immediately, but it's taken up at a tremendous rate by the trees. So there's actually patches of soil suspended in some of the trees. That's where all the life is in the forest. So it makes it very difficult to grow crops. But the early native people, the indigenous people all over the Amazon basin and up into the Mayan civilization and up into the Incan civilization, discovered thousands of years ago that adding charcoal to their soil, probably mixed with human waste, probably mixed with their form of compost, just created this incredibly rich, dark soil. And the color of that soil is from the stuff that typically makes topsoil dark. Biochar does not account for the color of that soil. That's maybe 8% carbon, and you can take 8% carbon and put it in white sand, and it won't make any difference in the color. That looks as rich as what used to be our Great Plains Midwestern soil, because it is, and it's 6 feet deep. Now, I said it's made very cleanly. That means it's heated to a very high temperature in the absence of oxygen, so that the hydrogen and other impurities are essentially vaporized. Pyrolyzed is the term. They go up in flame and they leave about half of the carbon content of the biomass behind. Is there anyone who has never lit a wooden match and had it burn all the way down to the tip, leaving a stick of black carbon? Congratulations, you've all made biochar. That's all it is. It's just a very highly refined, very pure form of carbon. The heat that is generated from the flame is actually kept away from the residual carbon by the flame itself. The flame is consuming all the oxygen, so that the oxygen never really reaches the surface of the char. That's what preserves that 50% of the char. What's going up in flames is mostly hydrogen and some a little bit of carbon, some methane, but it's mostly a hydrogen flame. After that, there's methane and about 300 other compounds that are all burning up at the same time. But they're using up most of the oxygen that's available to the space around the match, leaving about 50% of the carbon. And there's a million ways to do that. You can do it in an open burn with a flame that's exposed to the air. You can do it by putting it in various containers and separating the carbon from the heat. Here's a diagram of just a schematic of a very, very simple process. You throw the biomass in the tank, heat it up, and about 50% of the matter from that wood escapes as gas and can be used for fuel, and the other 50% of the carbon drops out at the bottom and is returned as biochar. The biomass electric power plants in the area produce something called high carbon fly ash, which is a very impure form of charcoal. It's only about 20 to 40% carbon and 40 to 60% ash. So by burning some of the residual carbon, they get a little extra heat out of it, but they don't burn it all. And probably the best, actually, this biochar comes from some former power plants in Maine, and the best biochar on the West Coast is all made from biomass power plants that have been detuned slightly so that they don't quite burn all the carbon, and it comes out as a very, very pure form of carbon, which actually is so valuable that it makes up for the slightly lower amounts of electricity that are produced.
Isn't the power plant right at 12A? That's biomass, right?
In Springfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I can never remember his last name, Lionel from Sullivan County. That name ring a bell? He's the environmental officer for Sullivan County. He and I are looking into a power plant like that is farther down, is actually owned by Sullivan County. He's very interested in seeing if that could be tuned to produce biochar down there. I'd love for something like that to happen in Enfield, but we're getting closer. Okay, the next slide. So it comes out in various forms. That's just lump charcoal on the left, very much like what we've got here, but on the right, you can see it retains not only the shape of whatever biomass goes in, wood chips or stems or log sections, all of those shapes on the right are basically the same shape as what went in. But not only does it retain the shape of the particle that went in, it retains the actual vascular structure of the wood itself. We'll get to that in the next slide, but the way it does that is this, right? It forms the particular form, next slide, thank you, of carbon that makes up these little chunks I just passed around is called amorphous graphene, sort of related to graphite, except that it's highly porous because that honeycomb structure of all the carbon molecules, a six-pointed carbon molecule and a six-pointed carbon molecule, they all fit together in a fairly regular sheet of carbon. And the reason we have that electrical charge on it is because all of those bonds between those carbon molecules, they basically represent extra electrons playing musical chairs from one node to another. That makes those electrons very available to other electrical charges, some of them generated by the biomass, the living organisms in the soil. That's what collects the organic compounds out of the air in a mask or in a out of the water in a water filter, and just holds them very slightly. And in soil, that manifests as cation exchange capacity. Cation exchange is the single most important chemical reaction that goes on in the soil. It's how the fungi and some bacteria trade nutrients with the plant. The sugar comes down in the plant's sap. Just like in every maple tree we have, all the trees do that. They feed sap. That sap doesn't just feed the tree, it also feeds the organisms in the soil. So the tree spits out a little sugar molecule and trades it for a calcium molecule or a phosphorus molecule. And those are all done at cation exchange points. And it spits out the sugar molecule because it's getting a chemical signal from the hungry little bugs in the soil. It says, give me some sugar and I'll give you some calcium. So they make that trade on these points here. This is also the secret to why synthetic fertilizers ruin soil rather than enrich it. When you put a straight nitrogen source into the ground in soluble form, the tree doesn't need to trade sugar for it. It can just grab that nitrogen molecule right out of the water. As a result, it doesn't trade any sugar for it. It doesn't put any sugar into the soil. It doesn't nourish the soil microbiome, and that whole soil microbiome dies. So that eventually you keep running synthetic fertilizers through the soil. You're not killing the plants, you're killing the microbiomes that normally conduct these exchanges with plants. And that soil becomes more and more dependent on those artificial fertilizers to live or to feed the plants. And the farmer, who is paying the price of nurturing those plants, is now buying nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium based synthetic fertilizers because the bugs in the soil are all dead and they're not feeding it from the natural minerals anymore. So that vicious cycle increases the dependency on the farmer of inputs to get the same outputs or improvement in outputs that they're looking for. But if you feed the soil instead of feeding the fertilizer to the plant, then the soil is giving back to you at least as much as you're putting in. No more synthetic fertilizers in your economics. Biochar acts as the catalyst for boosting these nutrient exchanges between the plant and the soil microorganisms, and over time steadily decreases, eventually down to zero, the need for the synthetic fertilizer. Next. Okay. Now you can see the reason for the porosity here at the top left, That's the structure of biochar under the microscope. The bottom right, is an even, closer view of char made from a different plant, and in the middle are two different forms of the vascular structure that this biochar came from. That's cross section. That's actually a sample. The yellow is actually petrified wood. On the left is actually a cross section of the vascular structure of raw wood, pine, and you can see the similarities. That's because as the hydrogen and the other volatiles in the wood are pyrolyzed away, they're boiled off in effect by the heat that it's exposed to. The carbon matrix stays intact and assumes the structure of the whatever it's being made out of. We were doing a demonstration up at a educational farm up near Burlington, Vermont, and we were asked, "Hey, could you do a you can do it." We did a pine cone and we did an oak branch, and they all maintained their form. And someone said, "Could you do an animal?" The next morning on the way to the job site, my business partner, the guy with the turnip, said, "Hey, pull over," and picked up a dead woodchuck from the side of the road. Woodchuck had been there for a while. It was pretty well desiccated, so he threw that in with the rest of the wood, and out came a black woodchuck.
Really?
Slightly shrunken, because of course the water goes out of it and some of the mass goes out of it. But it maintained not only the gross structure of the animal that went in, but you could see the porous structure of the bone under a microscope and all of that. The one reason that biochar, unlike activated carbon, has so much surface area is because it maintains that highly porous structure of the wood that it's made from. Next. These are various structures, apparatus, machines used for making biochar. In the top middle was the first atom retort. It was designed in Germany, and the first biochar unit deployed in New Hampshire. I built that about 15 or 20 years ago, and it was used at Ideal Compost in Peterborough till just recently. The others are all the bottom in the center, the Biochar Solutions gasifier. On the bottom right, that's actually a horizontally fed wood gasifier that is operating an electric power plant in Kansas, and a combustion unit which combined are producing ethanol, the heat required to distill ethanol in massive quantities. And there's all kinds of ingenious ways. All of them basically do the same thing. They produce heat from about 10% of the energy content of the biomass going into them, which is enough to pyrolyze and turn to char the other 90% of the wood. So one of the really important byproducts of making biochar is to capture renewable energy. One of the things that goes to make biochar carbon negative. Next. In real simple terms, here's the biochar cycle. You have the sun and CO2 combining in a green plant to form biomass, mostly woody biomass. Put it through the pyrolysis process, you get an output of energy. You also get some interesting byproducts, such as liquid smoke. You may have seen it in the form of barbecue flavoring. That is literally liquid smoke, that smoke that comes off of a charcoal making process, which is then distilled. And not only is it a great barbecue flavoring, but known as wood vinegar or pyroligneous acid. It has any number of agricultural applications similar to vinegar. But it is effective in boosting germination at minute dilutions of 2 parts to 1,000, and at stronger concentrations, It's a biodegradable, non-toxic herbicide. And in between, it's got applications for delivery of foliar sprays, of compost tea, all kinds of applications around the farm that you would normally use another chemical for. The biochar goes into the soil, feeds the microbes in the soil, which increase biomass production. Your only inputs here are sun, CO2, and water, and you have a net production of energy and a net increase in soil quality and agricultural productivity. The next slide is a much more elaborate illustration of the same thing. On the left, you have the typical carbon cycle in nature, where it goes into the ground, into the air, into the tree, into the ground, into the air, and into the tree in balance. But if you just take out of it a little bit of the carbon involved in this, return that carbon to the soil, you boost the throughput to the entire production, producing the pyrolysis will then give you a surplus energy and surplus production. And this uses a forest environment intentionally, because the same thing can happen in the forest, and in fact does happen in the forest, as well as in intensively managed agriculture. Forest fires are a naturally occurring event. They're totally out of control because of bad forest management primarily, and climate issues. But in a normal, healthy, balanced forest, you'll get a ground cover fire every 5, 10, 20, 30 years, which will do exactly this. It'll return carbon to the atmosphere, and the smoke it produces will actually condense on the branches and the leaves of the trees. The next rain will return that wood vinegar to the soil, where it works its magic in development of various acids that are good for the soil, germination stimulants, and even some pest control. Next, please. All right, I'm not going to read you the whole list of benefits. The really important one here to demonstrate what we can do to improve soils. The bottom right-hand corner is my friend Tom Miles on a cornfield in Ames, Iowa, about 15 years ago, which was a test plot on old, completely depleted soil that had been taking synthetic NPK applications for years and years and years. And there was just planted acres and acres of, just on the raw soil, on the artificial, on the synthetic fertilizer, and on biochar. And what you see in this picture is the old depleted soils on the left, and Tom is standing in the biochar treated soils on the right. They used to say, my grandfather had a farm in Illinois, and he taught me the expression knee high by the 4th of July. The corn crops used to be knee high by the 4th of July. This picture was taken on June 8th.
Whoa.
So the crop on the left, is going for knee high by the 4th of July, but the biochar crop is going to be right before July is.
You just need a shorter human. That's how we measure in our house. No, you're right though, that's it.
So this is typical plant response in poor soil. Now, in good soil, and soil is already working correctly, you still want to add biochar if and as you can, because it makes the soil work more efficiently. Once you get the soil up to its productivity is going to be limited by water and sunlight. The soil can only get the little bugs in the soil can only get so much out of it. What the biochar does is decreases the need for input, preserves and builds the nutrients and the organic soil matter, rather than depleting them every year. So this is a very important thing economically, because I can tell people with tremendous confidence that biochar is not an expense, it's an investment. It helps get the farmer out of the cycle of annual expenses and in many cases, financing and then carrying that financing with interest because it's an investment in the soil. It's what we call recalcitrant. We go back to the South American soil that's 6 feet thick. The reason it's 6 feet thick is because it doesn't go away. The carbon in this form is not consumed by the plants. It acts as a catalyst, which by definition is something that facilitates a chemical reaction without being consumed by it. And that's what's going up here. It's the Bitcoin of the soil. It facilitates the transactions, but it keeps getting richer and richer and more valuable rather than being consumed by the plants, not being taken up by the plants. The very bottom of that layer that we saw early that was 6 feet deep, that started getting laid down hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And it doesn't go away because it's chemically stable. All the little electrons bouncing around on its surface facilitate all those nutrient and energy exchanges in the soil, but the carbon itself remains stable. Next. How are we doing on time?
8:55.
Okay, this is largely redundant. We can skip down. The next one with the sunflower also, it's essentially repetitive. One reason I have so much in here about the environment and soil quality is that in the concern with climate change, the carbon negative aspects of biochar, I think, have been way overemphasized, and insufficient attention has been paid to what it does for the environment. I'd also noticed down the bottom of here, it says revitalize brownfield sites. We'll get to a couple of those in a moment. I would like to emphasize that because just as it works in a HEPA filter by fixing toxics and organic compounds in the mask, it does the same thing in the soil. It's used on mining sites. It's used in the fire recovery sites, such as the Hawaii fire from last year.
Reduces phosphorus in groundwater.
Hmm?
It reduces phosphorus.
Yeah, it loves phosphorus. It's a little bit trickier dealing with nitrates,
Yeah.
but it'll sequester phosphorus directly. For nitrates, remember I said it boosts cation exchange capacity. The anions that are involved in nitrogen are a little bit different, but if you compost wood chips with it, it'll form what's called a divalent cation bridge. You got a cation here, a cation here. This cation grabs onto the biochar and the other one's hanging out here. So it can grab an anion. So it becomes an anion exchange point too. And that will take nitrogen out of groundwater.
When I'm wondering, far out dream.
Or a water body.
Yeah. What about reducing phosphorus
What
to
happened to it?
prevent cyanobacter blooms?
Yes.
Has it been done? Has been used?
Yes, that's been done. I've worked on a project at Upper Klamath Lake. You familiar with Upper Klamath Lake? It's the cyanobacteria capital of the world. And 10 years ago, when the settlement that is now resulting in the removal of the Klamath River dams was being discussed, I presented biochar to the California State Water Board as part of the Klamath production because we showed how a biochar filter could just sweep through those lakes and pull the cyanobacteria out of it because the phosphorus pollution comes from basalt deposits that are way upstream, as far upstream as Crater Lake. So you've got this naturally phosphorus charged water then going through something like 1.5 million head of cattle country then washing into Upper Klamath Lake, which is only 10 feet deep for its entire.
Yeah, so it's like double trouble floating down into the lake.
Exactly, exactly. And biochar is a perfect solution. Land-based filters that go on, the barges that go through there and collect, what do they call it, blue-green algae.
Mhm.
You've seen that at $12 a bottle in a health food store. Blue-green algae superfood. All it is the cyanobacteria that's harvested from the Upper Klamath Lake when it's not in a toxic cycle. The cyanobacteria itself.
Don't you want that?
Is not,
Natural.
well, in its defense, the cyanobacteria, the green stuff is not what's toxic. What happens is when a lake gets overpopulated, these little protein molecules are produced by the bacteria that are holding the cyanobacteria together in strings. And you look into Klamath Lake in the middle of one of these algae blooms, and it looks like green spaghetti. Because all the algae is strung together in these noodles, and that's the stuff that gets toxic. And I guess there's some ponds in the area that are reaching that. But yeah, you could put just like a big recycling filter on shore. And at the end of the day, what do you have? You have fertilized biochar, which is important too. Because one of the biochar is so active when it goes into the soil. If it goes in raw, it actually competes with the plants for the soil bacteria. It's great to put in compost. It's great to put down in a fungal bed, but it will outcompete the bacteria for nutrients until it absorbs a certain amount. You know, it's like having to fill the reservoir before you turn on the tap. But if you charge it with, among other things, a phosphorus fertilizer like the cyanobacteria, before it goes in the soil, then it goes to work immediately, sharing with the plant and the soil bacteria. But we never put it on new plants, fresh plants raw for that reason. It is so active. It's doing its thing just with nutrients in the soil and leaving the plants and the bugs out of the equation. So we feed it a little first before we put it in the soil, and then it's fine. And we found this out the hard way. There was a greenhouse in Ontario, Canada, that killed an acre of lettuce starts by putting raw biochar. Here. Did I not mention that to you?
Oh, you did. I did not put anything raw in my stuff.
Yeah. Okay, next, please. Okay, it is terrific in composting. As I said, the thing that makes it dangerous to put on raw plants is exactly what makes it so effective in putting it into a compost pile up to a 50-50 concentration. And at the end of the day, then you have this supercharged compost and the supercharged biochar. So when I make it, I make three products. I make one that's essentially biochar that's inoculated, we call it, or prepared. I make a 50-50 mix, and then I make a just a it's primarily compost, but it's had a little biochar boost to it, and they're all used in different applications. Next, it can be used for water filtration, stormwater runoff, toxic spills, sewage overflows. I understand Enfield has a very interesting stormwater and sewage system, which is being looked at right now. Is that right, Kate? Do I have that right, Kate?
You mean the runoff issue?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's separate from sewage. It's the,
Well, it's
personal-
supposed to be, but
Well,
there's
it's
a lot of
septic tank,
systems
yeah.
that aren't, yeah.
It's the septics, yeah.
Yeah.
Sewage is the public.
A lot of filtration and treatment applications that biochar can do for remedial wetlands, for instance, or directly into mechanical biofilters, all kinds of stuff.
Is that is that like a rain garden of sorts?
Yes, yeah, that's a
We love that topic, so.
that's a big a big biofilter used.
I'm just thinking about catching some coming off, because anytime, like, we're getting a lot of phosphorus off the hill into Crystal Lake, right?
Yeah,
It's not like everyone keeps picking on poor Becknell Brook, but it's not Becknell Brook that's the issue. It's anytime water runs through a forest, it picks up phosphorus as a natural component. I mean, you can obviously pick up other things, but there's a lot of phosphorus in the forest that's not bound. If we could catch it, which we had talked about in the past about a rain garden, treat it,
tailor-made. Tailor-made.
that's an opportunity right there. I'll be interested to see what comes separate. We won't talk about tonight, the Crystal Lake thing.
Next, please. Okay, this is the Hope Mine. This was a gold mine in Idaho, I believe. So those are all nasty cyanide contaminated tailings on that hillside, treated with a little topsoil, a little biochar, and some good forestry practices. That's that same tailings pile after about 2 or 3 years of remediation efforts. So if, for instance, you,
Is that
huh?
how expensive is it to do that?
It's like advertising. It doesn't cost, it pays.
Yeah.
I'll give you a good example. Out here on 4A. 4A? Yeah, on 4A. You have the former Chase Auto Salvage place.
Mm-hmm.
You had 19 acres that looks like the before picture up here. There were cars, and you know there's transmission. It's gotta be a brownfield site.
Yeah.
What is that worth now versus if it looked like that picture down there?
Yeah.
That's, we'll get to it in the course of time, but that's my fantasy project for Enfield.
I think another thing that comes before the select board doesn't necessarily come here, but what I report to you would be interesting to you, is that we do have a number, because of the nature of our soil here. We have a number of gravel pits, and when they are closed, or they're considered abandoned when they're not used for a certain period of time, they are required to be reclaimed.
Gravel pit, because it involves less toxics. It's mostly just,
The reclaim, yeah.
it's mostly just beat up. Piece of cake for a combination of biochar and managed grazing. Make soil out of, there's a big sand pit where we used to work on Cape Cod that's looking at exactly the same thing.
There was quite a bit of discussion when they were talking about the reclamation project about concerns about aquifer, right, and how it affects the aquifer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically in regards to being backed up to the Eastman development, so.
Yeah. Great opportunity there, okay? Oh, I can get you this information if you want to read the article on mine reclamation. This is a project I did last February in Maui. What you're looking at there, right in the middle under the tent, is a biochar unit to which I own the design. And in back is the eucalyptus, which has been invasive on Hawaii since it was brought over by the Australians and traded for sandalwood and koa. So what they are doing is another dream project. They're making biochar out of the dying eucalyptus and using it to restore the soil to reestablish the koa and sandalwood. I'm really proud of this project. Okay, the next one. That's the whole site, looking out toward West Maui. I got to work there for 3 weeks last February. And the product coming out of this site was going for soil remediation in Lahaina, which this was the city at the west end of Maui that was burned to the ground. Okay. Called Haleakala Biochar. This is looking east up that's the Haleakala volcano, right up above us. And when the local people were doing an opening ceremony for us, right in the middle of the prayer to Pele, we felt some trembles.
No.
Little movement in the still active volcano. Okay, next. And that's Lahaina with a really good illustration of some of the soil remediation is going on. Very interesting thing about Lahaina is that an incredible amount of the biomass actually survived while all the buildings burned to the ground. It's not a wildfire problem, it's an urban construction problem. Now, obviously, it started as a wild,
Mhm.
as a wild,
How long ago was that fire?
2 years.
Why? Time flies.
Yeah,
2 years ago.
so yes.
But, so that's, in less than 2 years, it's been restored.
Yeah, but well before, these were taken about a year ago. So the soil was beginning to come back. Soil is an incredibly resilient resource. Soil was coming back when the buildings had not even been removed yet.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, next. Okay, there's the tree of life. Make that a graphic available to you if you're interested, but it just sort of ties together all the different elements that operate by and through biochar in the forest. Next. The New Hampshire charcoal kiln. Who knew? Is anybody familiar with this? Described by Henry Baldwin, who was the state forester of New Hampshire in 1958. Figured out how to make charcoal basically out of a grain bin. So there's a tremendous tradition of charcoal as well as biochar in New Hampshire. In fact, I first learned more about biochar in New Hampshire more than any place else. Go on to the next one. The guy in the top left is Dr. Thomas B. Reed. Does that ring a bell with anyone? He was a chief engineer at a couple of federal labs, including the solar energy and then the renewable energy federal lab in Golden, Colorado. He was a New Hampshire resident. This picture was taken at Pony Farm in 2010 with Dr. Reed, the mad scientist, demonstrating how to make biochar just with an open fire. And he developed what you see in the bottom right, which is the modern version of the Lincoln County charcoal method. Anybody know what the technical difference between bourbon and Tennessee whiskey is?
Filtration,
Yes. And you know what they filter it through?
charcoal.
Yeah, and that's how they make their charcoal, just with an open burn. And that's sugar maple. They cut
Wow.
2x2 sugar maple, stack it 8 feet square, 10 feet high, pour a gallon of 151 proof on top of it, light it, burn it from the top down, almost no smoke. Super hot temperatures, super high quality filter grade charcoal. And they collect the heat in that duct that's over it, and then they run it through various heat processes that they need to make. But
Sugar maple.
that guy there, yeah,
My
in
God,
Tennessee,
I
who knew?
tap those babies, leave them alone.
They don't harvest them. They just, it's all deadfall. They make a lot of syrup in Tennessee. It's and up into Indiana. But that guy right there is, by the way, he's responsible for the Hypertherm factory over in Leb. He invented the plasma cutter.
Really?
Yes, among
Yeah,
other
Reed.
things. Huh?
Is it Reed or?
Reed,
Thomas
yeah,
Reed.
in about 1960. Okay. Can you play this? Do we have 3 minutes? This is the last.
Is this the last? Okay.
Can you click on it? How you make biochar on any open burn. One of my students. Notice what's happening to the smoke.
Really interesting.
And the last slide. There. This was taken by a friend of mine over in Jaffrey named Doug Campbell. Doug, yes, who just happened to pick up a little piece of biochar with that growing on it one day and took that picture. One of the most famous shots of biochar ever taken, a little more
Yeah.
local
Huh.
New Hampshire biochar lore.
Cool.
Yeah, well, I had no idea
So that's it.
it was capable of so many.
Oh, by the way, that last thing we saw, I think every outdoor open burn on the planet should be done like that.
Mm.
That technique you just saw reduces particulate emissions by over 90%. When I said, watch what happens to the smoke, you look really closely, you could see it was being drawn up into the flame front and completely combusted, not being discharged into the atmosphere. That gets rid of all the particulates and a lot of the chemicals that go up in a wood fire. And I know there's a lot of wood burning done around here. And the residue, I wanted him to rake it up into a pile. But the result of that is you get about $100 worth of biochar out of the deal. So that's carbon. That's half the carbon in that pile of wood that is not going into the atmosphere, but could go into the ground as valuable biochar. Every open burn
Well, I,
ever.
Lots of.
I think that one of our future things should be that we make this more accessible to more people, this information.
I would love that.
I'm really thinking about one of the byproducts, which you didn't spend as much time on, but the liquid smoke. But
Yes.
we have an invasive species issue that we have identified and are working on treating as a town. And some of the concerns around treating it, of course, are when you treat it and it potentially goes into water runoff, what are you causing? So I think, just thinking, I have a lot to think on, but that in particular, because
The liquid smoke in a dilute form, which is easy to do after you use it, you just wash it or arrange it in a dilute form. It's a nutrient.
because we have a town project, but then we talked about like teaching homeowners how to remove some invasive species too, so.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of possibilities.
Thank you for,
Well, thank you.
it always takes longer than I planned. Oh, on that last burn, by the way, the entire actual lapse time for that burn was 35 minutes.
Really?
Yes, because it starts out a little slower, but it burns so hot, it rips through that fire much, much faster than if you use the usual technique of lighting it at the bottom and piling more wood on it. Because it's burning all of that smoke. That smoke is fuel. It burns all of it, so it's much hotter and much more efficient combustion for the whole pile. And yet you still get the charcoal out of it at the end.
So a bunch of us have fire pits.
Absolutely.
And, we burn a fire and,
Build it upside down and light it at the top next
light
time.
it at the top.
Could be-
And then-
Forget everything the Boy Scouts and your parents and your camp counselors taught you about building a fire.
Yeah.
The big stuff on the bottom, little stuff at the top, just light it at the top and watch it go.
I'm wondering if we could add this to continuing business, just so that we can noodle on it,
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think I have a lot to think
I
about.
think we should, skip the summer outreach. I wanted to get ideas of things that we could reach out to the community in summer, and if you could please be thinking about those and bring them to our next meeting.
I'd just like to say, old home days.
Yes, oh, well, I have that on it. But, also, maybe, will there be place for us at the market, at Pellerins?
I will ask Vicky. She is very community minded. She gave a donation to the garden project when she happened to drive by it today.
Great, great. Okay, I see her because I volunteer for the museum over there too.
Yeah, you know, she's community minded. I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah, and she is very community minded. I agree. I think we should get to the minutes. We have it's been a very interesting evening so far, but
Yeah.
we better get the
No.
things taken care
Corley's paging me from home.
of.
She would like her to cook.
But thank you very much, Peter. That was
Thank you.
so interesting. And I wish we hadn't had, I feel like we had to hurry. And, if we had more such a full schedule, but,
If I had had more time to prepare, it would have been shorter.
well, it was great.
It's-
And there's so much I wasn't aware of that,
Thank you.
that I think that we need to get this out. Let's see, has everyone looked at the minutes?
Yep.
Yep.
Can we just have a motion to put them on the table?
I'll make a motion that, we, vote to,
We just have to put them on the table
Yeah.
first, and then we
Yeah.
can make any comments or corrections.
okay, but yeah, I'm making a motion to put them on the table.
Okay, second,
Second,
okay, any comments
You
or?
have to do a roll call if you're doing a motion to put them on. the
Oh, that's right, that's right,
Because there's one online.
yes, thank you for reminding me.
Just making a motion to.
Jean, you wanna make do you approve of the motion? Yeah,
Aye. Yes,
aye,
yeah,
Tom Claus, aye.
Jay Walton's on.
Peter Erskine.
thank you.
Kate Plumley, Stewart, aye.
I didn't say my name, Ed Rippey,
Okay, any corrections or additions?
I did not see anything.
I think they're perfect as always. I
Yeah.
have some comments I'd like to make about some of the items in it though, but I'll be real brief.
Yeah.
Um,
Promise?
Okay. Let's see. Oh, the public comments. Jerry Tice's passing out that stuff. Oh, we're not gonna do it tonight,
No.
but is that gonna be on the agenda to discuss? I mean, it's really more appropriate for probably the Crystal Lake Association, but I think we need to
Yeah.
talk about it too. As a-
I just point of information, what stuff? It didn't go in the packet.
It was a handout that Jerry
People
brought in. You might have seen it. He's put it around town for people to pick up.
People count,
I think he
5 years.
It was about some,
I wasn't there, so I need,
I know,
you'll have to, if it's part of the public record, I need.
yes, I'll send it to you.
I don't usually
It
go
was,
hunting for work.
some, water testing that's been being done for the past few years on Crystal Lake. And also he had it touched on a lot of, other water situations in town with the wells and so forth. And, see where, I might have one here to do here, that, but people were gonna go home. It was 3 or 4 pages and
Yeah.
commission was gonna go home and look at it and bring back
There's that,
comments for another meeting.
there's that handout that I asked
Pardon me.
you.
Kate wasn't at the last.
I know she.
Oh, you forwarded me a different, okay, that is the same handout that you
Yeah,
forwarded.
that's.
Then I have, that's, yeah,
And it was forwarded to the board, yes.
okay, no, I got it as a select board item. If it's the same thing, I've got it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
all right, so we'll discuss it another time.
Yeah.
oh, okay. I didn't think all of it was factual, but okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, under Old Home Days, I was gonna suggest that we have the booth there. I think we talked about that,
Yeah.
but we'll, yeah,
Mhm.
and I'll be willing to work on that.
Yeah.
See,
And you're gonna plan a hike.
Yeah, I came up when Kate brought up that idea. I'd like to probably take a walk up, Goodhue Hill Road. To be honest with you,
That'd be good.
yeah,
Can do it down the margin, go to Butternut.
possibly, for those that would like to. Some can turn around and head back, and if people wanna keep going, can keep going.
I dragged myself home from there one time.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's a good idea, so,
Because Butternut is not somewhere people usually go, not that
No.
you have to do it, but it's beautiful.
yeah,
It's like Coal Pond kind of beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hey.
it's nice.
Do you have, any after minutes actually select board?
Yeah, I
Do you
can
have
give you
anything
the
to
world's
report?
shortest, yeah.
You guys.
Oh,
did
you
not
didn't do
approve
your
the
minutes. You didn't, yeah,
Really?
there's, you don't
Didn't
have a,
finish,
you don't
right.
have a motion on the table to approve. You just have a
Okay,
motion.
shall I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes as,
I'm not even helping.
So-
Second,
Okay,
Yeah, I thought that was.
okay. We need to have a roll call vote, Jean.
Jean
Approval.
Belgraski Hinshaw, aye.
Ed Rippey, aye.
Tom Claus, aye.
Jay Walton,
Peter Erskine.
Kate Plumley Stewart abstains. She wasn't here. I know I'm allowed to vote,
Oh,
but
I wasn't here either.
you can vote though, if you feel comfortable. I just,
That's right.
he's obviously confused about the content.
So do you have anything to report for the select board?
I'm gonna make it like really short.
because the thing I think it would be most interesting to you is was a Potato Road FEMA hazard mitigation grant application. We have a longstanding water issue that we have battled on Potato Road for many, many years. It is very, very wet there on both sides of the road and it is not paved. And we've had some culvert issues over the years. We've tried multiple times to get a grant because the work that needs to be done is relatively expensive. Some of it cannot wait. And so we've eliminated, I think it's culverts 1 through 4. And the long and the short of it is we're focusing now on one culvert in hopes they'll actually give us the money. And it is right along the Canaan town line. So hopefully we'll pray to the FEMA gods, that they will provide some money so that we can do this project in a way, because it does pass through wetlands. So that one's the most interesting. There was a discussion on a vendor permit to have food trucks in town and just, making sure it's a safe and appropriate way to do it. Community nursing was disbanded, and that is not because we do not like them. It is because they have kind of completed their charge, and any fundraising can be done without having a formalized committee that needs a quorum and needs minutes, and needs a minute taker.
So the food trucks that may happen?
We have some rules in place, so that they can be given a spot and have some guidelines, and so it's kind of a neat add-on, and also the expectation of keeping your trash out of the lake and all.
Yeah, whereabouts would it be?
They have a list that's on the permit, so you can take a sidebar and take a look online. I don't know if they have it up yet, but they will. But basically it lists most of the public places, and then there's another category if you found somewhere like you really thought you should be able to do a food truck, you can have that discussion with the town manager's office. So that's exciting. And there's a solid waste and recycling committee. You guys might be interested in that. In particular, there's a very long charge. It's very comprehensive, and it is a very big charge for the timeline we have. However, I think it's very important. So if the committee comes back and says, we were able to do X, Y, and Z, we were not able to cover this, I certainly would understand. That's my personal view on it. But we did approve that, and they are taking applicants. So if any of you are interested, I would encourage you to take a look at the requirements for the committee. Not talent requirements, but what we're asking the committee to do, and then fill that out online. We did board and committee appointments. It was very complicated. And this one I do want to talk to you about because we had the omission where we didn't have an application, obviously, from Seth, who did his due diligence. And so I apologize for that oversight, and we'll be making sure he is in the packet for Monday. And he's been very gracious about it. And so potential for appointing as an alternate, but it also brought to light that we don't, as a board, have good guardrails. I'm saying a select board, on how we appoint people and what needs an alternate, what doesn't need an alternate, and the fact that there are committees that are longstanding committees who actually don't have a charge, us being one of them, right? We have a state law charge, but then we haven't really made our asks and expectations clear. Every once in a while we sent a barn project to Heritage and said, hey, would you do this for us? And so just I think that's going to be a conversation that's going to be coming up, part of it with an eyeball on, and Shirley, I know you saw the video, just with an eye, and I talked to her a little bit about it, with an eyeball on fairness, to make sure that we're inclusive and that we're giving people a chance, and that we're not just stacking committees with alternates, but also, I'm going to be raising the conversation about, if we have alternates and we don't have, and we have them here in person and we have a committee member who is not here, making sure that, we need to make a decision as a select board about how we govern our committees. In Lebanon, if somebody is not there, they're asked to state why if they're signing it online, and then they have an opportunity to seat an alternate who is committed to being there in person. So because we've never had this plethora of applicants, which is a good problem to have, but then how we're fair to our applicants and inclusive is something we need to talk about.
Well, I was an alternate when I first came on
this committee.
commission, and I wasn't part of the conversation or voting unless someone was absent.
Right, and we never had back then, we didn't have this online component. So the real question is, how do you deal with it, right? Because we've been very inclusive, but when you have an alternate present and you have the opportunity to be inclusive, how do we go about it? So Ed is gonna do a little research too. So I wanted you to know that conversation just is gonna be in play. It's something I'm gonna raise. It's not something the board has talked about, but it was very complicated to do the appointments, and it's not a jab at anyone. But I think in trying to be fair and understanding what we were doing,
it was a challenging thing because you want to be inclusive and you want to cast a broad net.
And the applications we used to be aware when there was an application. And if that had happened, Seth was missing.
Yeah, and maybe some of it is process flow. That's a very good point. The other thing is, in the past, I'd seen committees give feedback like, yes, I want this person, no, I don't. I don't know how fair that is
Yeah. Well,
but,
we didn't necessarily.
but if you have a bunch of people, you might seat somebody as a full versus a, no offense to you, Peter, because I'm very excited you're here. But it was just one of those, and it's like very hard to have this conversation. It's very personal in a small community. But I felt like we had a couple moments where I thought, you know, even if they might not have been someone's choice, I still felt like we probably needed a little more structure.
Well, I don't think we necessarily need to make a choice, but like Peter asked me if I'd seen his applicant, so I knew his interest, his application. I said, no.
And
Here we are, you know, the Conservation Commission had no idea.
And I assumed they had gotten Seth's, and when
No.
I didn't see it, I was like, huh. But I wasn't wise enough to ask, why isn't it Peter? So I just think some of those, like maybe fleshing out some of how we as a select board ask for the information, how it flows and how we interact with our management team
Yeah.
needs to be done. So I do apologize though, because I think that was hard and it did not feel good.
Yeah, and it didn't turn out well because of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, you know, it was gonna be a hard decision no matter what, but we could have, we learned something and now we need to figure out how to
Right.
go forward. So,
That's
there,
generally when you get change.
Yeah. then we took all of our financial policies, wait for it, very exciting, and we put them all into one document. Because in light of the fraud, which I talked to you about and some other things, it became very apparent, it would be very nice to have them all together. So that was a first read. It's gotten some more work and, the state made us reaffirm whether we really wanted to buy our vote counting devices, and we had to say we were going to use them if we bought them, so we made them happy.
What?
We had to buy new voting devices. Because they're old and if you saw.
they're
try to shove it
awful.
through, right,
They're
so
like
we have one that's
1940s.
approved, it's been looked at, we said we
Mechanical
wanted it, we did. And then the state came back and was really very picky, so if you see that and someone questions it, it's not fraud, it's nothing, it's the state wanted very specific language, and we just say, we're going to buy this, we're going to buy this specific make and model, and we are going to promise you that we're using it.
And the state's gonna pay for them?
No,
No.
oh, you're gonna pay for them, come on now.
No.
Sorry.
So the hell with the state then. I mean. they're
No,
not-
I know, it's
Pay
just,
money.
but I think if anyone says something to you about it, that is what happened. It was just them being picky about language in our meeting, and it wasn't that the language was wrong, it was that it was not as exact as the state wanted. The only other thing I think that would really be the New Hampshire DES emergency authorization verification to DOT, so the 89 unnamed stream. So did you see that?
No.
Okay, that one, and then the New Hampshire, these are information.
Oh, on 89, I did see
You
that.
did see that,
Yeah.
okay. And then, the barn survey, which is not specific to conservation, but might be of interest to you guys. We had remanded the question about whether there was gonna be a potential exploration, of an exemption of some kind to historic barns and maybe agricultural use barns. And so we sent that to Heritage, and so they included the 2014 barn survey, that I believe was student-led, it was a college project of some kind. And so that's in there. So if any of you are particularly interested in that, I know it's not conservation, but you're all very like-minded people, so. And that's it, unless somebody has a question they have for me, get us out here.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
And I know that was really fast.
Yeah. I know. Any new business from anyone?
Garden. Club, we're gonna call it, but coordinating with the garden folks, Patty Freed is back in town. I'm gonna be meeting with her in general with my town hat on. She today works with the folks on gardens and she has a really great team. We had the offer to conservation to coordinate with Enfield Shaker Museum.
Yeah.
And Susan Quinlan. So I think just tying those pieces together, figure out who, not to, that we own the project, that we are stewards of projects that are going on and then cycle back some of the information to here.
and see what our role or how, even if it's just contributing volunteers or spreading the good news in that. So just throwing, if we could put that on for the next agenda, that,
Yeah, I wanted to have, Susan come this, but our agenda was already very full.
Yeah.
what's
I too.
sorry.
Yes, so. Anyway, on the class, on the old business, on class six, I think we still need to do a little research on the cost of the signs. And, what we're gonna put on, and get that tied up our next meeting.
Can we try to develop maybe offline a couple people who have information like on the signs? Not, it can't be a quorum, but develop a bit of a grid that says road name.
Yeah.
And like a proposal so that you come
Yeah.
with it, so that we have some base groundwork. I mean, we can do the fill-ins live and corrections and updates, but that way, cause you guys had some great ideas and I was not there to
I'm
look at.
thinking we probably need two different signs. One, the big sign, like on Mud Pond Road, and a smaller thing where those trees are that have these blank white sheets on them. Maybe something smaller. I don't know, that's just my thought. To disagree.
You're suggesting a group form or subcommittee?
Like just a couple folks who know or have some ideas of what they think.
Yeah.
Put it into something that could be like a spreadsheet so that we have it bang, 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 like,
I'll do that.
and even if you just establish the categories that we need to decide so that when we go down the name of the, because you want that to go over in a very organized fashion to go before the select board if you're gonna ask them to approve any signs. And you'll want a column for rationale, right? So probably road name, rough description of where it's at, just to help anyone who doesn't know. I think some of the select board definitely knows, but some may not. So like category of sign or whatever, and then your like a rationale of like, hey, we want two signs, hey, we want one sign. Hey, this one as a property owner might not love having a sign. I don't really care what it is. I'm just thinking roughly
And
how we can get our.
Those
Might be able to put some time
More
into that.
Okay.
decisions that
I gotta
we need to
kind of be careful
finalize.
about my.
Yeah, that way we,
Time.
I'm coming in with at least a rough in so that we can.
And I'm thinking,
And,
Call me when you get an idea of how to proceed and I'll tell you what I think I can.
cost wise, you want one sign. Cause it's,
If we can get away with one
you
sign,
can make them all the same.
ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you wanna get away from mounting them on trees, because you can see what happens when they're mounted
Yeah.
on trees.
Yeah.
They don't last, it's a living thing, you know,
Yeah,
they could fall off, whatever, so
Right.
you need to have a post, I think.
because if we do
post,
have different,
some small
uh,
signs and some large.
I think it will be more costly if we have different, if we, you know what I mean? Because the more we have of one type, the less costly it will be. But, as far as having multiple signs done, but we need to, think about how many we need to.
Yeah. I think
And I think,
Jay made a good
that
point about.
Weight
there are
limit
some
question probably
roads we
needs to
don't
be
want
answered.
to, we don't want to bother, because it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if everyone who had, if you can think about the areas we visited and which ones you think really need them and which ones we stay away from.
There was that weight
For
limit
input.
question, Shirley. I don't remember where we ended up. Did we say someone was gonna check with somebody on what that? I'm not clear on whether there is a law and how it works.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, Kurt is not a lawyer.
I know,
I think it needs to go to a town leader and. they
Yeah,
need to
we
give us an
need,
answer.
someone needs to be asked
Yeah,
the question.
Because
question? I'm missing.
Wait,
Do we
weight
actually need
limit
the exact weight? Do we need that actually?
or is it even desirable? Is it helpful? Is it a good tool? Is it not a good tool? I don't know that answer.
To know the exact what?
Well, it's one of the signs had weight limits, then. the question
Oh, I see
was
what you mean.
another
Oh,
one.
yes. I
Cause
didn't,
then you get into, or let's say you find that you want to have one general sign and you leave a white spot where you can.
do we want to just identify the place or have a regulation there?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's the question I
That's
just,
a good.
that made my head go kind of like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we have to choose, that's a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I had heard a couple of different things about whether you could even use the date restriction and I'm. clear on that.
Name restriction absolutely can.
Yeah.
We are, yeah, the Board of Selectmen can legally post for a month season and we post the main roads as well. That just got lifted.
And folks can ask to be exempted, like a company that needs to bring in a crane or something,
Okay,
can work with
thanks for
DPW.
clarifying that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, whatever the town wants to do, they can make it as many, as strict.
Well,
as
there
they
are
want. Well,
RSA's
Trout's a good
about them
example.
too. We should,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know that.
look
That's
those,
fine.
look
think
at them. I got
Ed
some
might be the
information
person.
from the New Hampshire Conservation Commission.
Yeah, and Ed could probably point us in the right direction, one way or
Yeah.
another, if you wanna have that conversation.
Because before we spend,
Yeah, he said he was more than happy to talk to you about it, so.
pardon me,
Ed had said he's more than happy to get information for you if needed, or make sure one of the folks gets it for you, so.
Yeah.
And I think something just in general to be thinking about, in a conversation I had with Ed in general about getting questions answered, is when we're asking to do work or from anyone, like some of it, we should know is like, what's our authority to do that, right? And so we can say to ourselves, hey, in the conservation book, it says this is within our purview. So that we are also helping, right? Like, hey, when we're asking somebody like, oh yeah, this is permitted, it's right here. We're not lawyers, but some of that stuff's right in the conservation book, which I did not look up tonight.
So that conservation book is so hard to read.
That's
So
why
hard-
they have
It's hard
lawyers.
to read, it's hard to,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
That's why I ask questions instead of trying to interpret it myself.
Yeah.
Yes,
That baby,
Is this the one you're talking about?
yeah, that's it.
it's got a lot of great information, but yeah, it's a hard read.
I don't know, it's got big print.
Oh, that is good. I like big
What
words.
is like the weight of a?
Okay.
Yeah, come on.
So on Old Home Days, excuse me, we need to keep, move on.
Just
And,
moving here. It's
and
getting
we need
late.
to move on.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we've had a suggestion in the booth and, the height of Goodfield Road. I know last year you did a presentation. I don't know if you're thinking.
I don't wanna do the same one. I think if we can just get a table and just get information, a bunch of us at where there'll be people at home.
Right.
whole day.
I'll take the action item to ask Pellerins if they'd give you a free spot. How about
Yeah.
that?
Someplace that we can set up, like bring the maps and just get everyone there and just share information, get plenty of handouts
Yeah.
and just be there, willing to talk to people. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Just like the table we
Uh,
had at the meeting.
Yeah.
On the road sides, I put another thing in the newsletter. And also I've been in touch with, the New Hampshire Audubon and they're sending me information. They had a meeting, which was when I was in Florida, but they have, information on ways, places they are having tables with information. And, I'll get the list out to you in case there's anyone who would like to participate in that.
Mhm.
But, and on correspondence, you get the shoreline permit application that someone had done.
Yeah.
Yes,
Back on the
yes.
lake.
Read it all.
Yes.
It's well within the
Yeah.
250 feet. Does anyone have any?
I didn't see
Look
any.
fine, look fine to me, they're staying within the same footprint.
Yeah.
That barn definitely, I mean, the garage definitely.
Right, even though it's in, I think I might relay to DES, we trust their.
Yeah.
Overseeing it
Yeah.
is.
I didn't see that they missed anything in their application that I thought was.
And
noticed.
look,
No.
back, if they're leveling the land, it's gonna be better for water
Yeah.
retention.
And I actually
No, I think it's fine.
went by and looked where they want the retaining wall they have now is kind of falling
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah.
And that is a worse problem for the lake than putting in one that's gonna.
Yeah, if anything's gonna improve.
Yeah.
improve the
Yeah,
situation.
it seemed fine. I think everybody.
Let's see, so I guess that we're ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
You
I want dinner.
know what I'm thinking, maybe I need to put, at our board meetings at the museum, we allow so many minutes for each topic.
That
Yeah.
works great.
And that gets us through exactly the time we want to get through.
Yeah,
I do that for
because-
others.
It is hard to curb conversation because it's good conversation and good
Yeah.
ideas.
But we can always do a breakout and schedule another meeting on bigger topics, or we can start earlier.
You'd like to start earlier, Kate?
I would start earlier because I'm gonna work till midnight anyways, but I want my food.
Yeah, well, I'll go home.
I
I
would
won't
support
be to bed
6
after midnight
But I
either.
have a motion on the table.
But,
A second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you say no, you have to say. You guys.
Okay, Jay Wong's yes.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
fine.
yes.
Peter Hurst, yes.
Yeah.
what's this, adjourn?
Belgrasky and Chai, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the home.
Yes.